Yes. So look out for those. They will be on our YouTube channel. They will be on our help desk in regarding those recordings. But other than that, I am going to turn my camera off. I am going to turn my sound off, and I'll be answering Q&A.
All right. Thanks, Rick. And then if anyone else is just popping in, we're going to go over that yet again. But I do want to welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're at. But thanks for coming back for day 2. It doesn't look like we lost or scared away too many of you. But we're going to continue on with some of those tools and lessons we learned yesterday and continue with this theme of tools for building a better tomorrow. So again, if you joined us yesterday, it's going to be kind of that same format for today. We'll have a quick little introduction, reintroduce ourselves for anyone who might be new for today. Then we'll hop into our first few kind of agendas we'll have with our sales cycle, which is going to be with Haley and Austin. We'll take a quick little break, and then Haley's going to stay on but join me for prospect to client. Then we'll take yet another quick little break, and then we'll wrap up the day with Austin and Curtis in client management. Now, I could sit here and introduce everyone, but I'm going to kind of start from the far right and go over. So, Austin, go ahead and pop in and say hi to everyone.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon to those joining on the East Coast. My name is Austin. I'm a trainer here at Redtail. Been here for about 2.5 years now. And today I'm real excited to join sales cycle and client management. We're going to be looking at prospecting in Redtail and also the client review process.
Perfect. And Haley, why don't you pop on in? Say hi.
Hello, everybody. I'm Haley. This is my partner in crime, Malcolm. And like Catherine and Austin said, I'm starting with the first 2 sessions of the day and just really jazzed to be here.
And how long have you been on the training team?
Yes, 4 years. I should remember that faster.
Because you've been at Redtail far longer, but I'm like, I'm going to slip in that one word and throw you off. Curtis, bring it on up. What are you doing this morning?
My name's Curtis. I actually get to sit for most of the day and watch you guys present, and I'm going to jump in at the end with Austin and talk about client management. So with that, I've been with Redtail just over 8 on the training team. I think like 6.5 years. I think. So
right, yeah. It makes us do math in the morning, and we're sitting here going, "When did we start?"
Some years ago. English, these are things I don't know how to do.
And for anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Catherine Beltran. I've been on the training team for 2 years now, just a little bit over that. And again, I'm going to be actually in the middle of the day, and we'll talk more about that onboarding process that hopefully we've all been experiencing. We've all been bringing those on. Some quick little kind of FAQs to go through. Again, we are going to have both the QA and the chat functions available in Zoom today. I do ask, beg, plead that you put those questions in the QA, and we'll get those answered as soon as we can. Keep in mind, there are over 1,000 of you that would be on, so we'll try to answer them as fast as possible, but our fingers can only type so fast. So we will get to them. It just might be not as fast as you might like. Now, chat, definitely put any of those kind of commentaries, fun little quirks, make fun of us if you want. We're always up for a good laugh, but definitely we love the interaction, and feel free to put it into that chat. Now, just kind of some other reminders for after this session. So we will send out a follow-up email on Friday. This will include a copy of this presentation as well. And I like to almost have like a drum roll. We will send out 3 lucky prize winners for anyone who fills out those surveys. So definitely hint, hint, fill out those surveys. We'll send you a box of goodies for 3 lucky winners. And then one last reminder, again, we've already said it this morning, but this session will be recorded, and we'll have it available on both our Redtail Help Desk as well as our YouTube channel. So as Curtis said earlier, we'll have it available by next week. I'd say probably safe to say end of next week, I'd check, just to play it safe. But
yeah, it's a big thing. I doing the editing, it's a lot to get through to make sure everything's correct to edit, but definitely next week it should be up.
Perfect. All right. Now we do obviously, I'm going to say this really quick here too. All of these lovely pups are ours. And I know some of us have brought them into work, and they are at my house as well. So if you ever see them, these are their names. You can always say hi. We'll have a good laugh. But with that, let's go ahead and bring it over to Austin and Haley and kick it off with kind of that prospecting concept.
All right. Awesome. Here we go. Can you guys see my screen okay? Just wanted to double check here. Looking good.
Looks perfect.
All right, awesome. Welcome everybody. This is Sales Cycle by Catherine by Curtis. We'll see you guys later. Welcome to Sales Cycle, everybody. Today we're going to look at Redtail CRM as a prospecting tool. So how to enhance your sales processes and grow your business using Redtail CRM. So let's start off here with just setting the expectation, what we can expect to learn today. So when we originally planned this out, the goal was to find the best way to do prospecting in Redtail. And as I was kind of going through and outlining and trying to develop out the content, I realized that there really wasn't like the perfect way in every scenario to prospect using Redtail CRM. It was more of like, it was like a toolbox, going along with our theme of construction, where depending on the scenario, we're going to go ahead and reach for different tools depending on what we need. And so today I have 3 tools that we're going to be covering. It's going to be tag groups, it's going to be opportunities, and it's going to be workflows. And workflows is going to be a little bit of a recap of what we covered yesterday, but I kind of want to show you in the flow of things of how it works now that we have everything set up. So with that said, let's jump to it. We're going to start off with our first tool of the day, which is tag groups. So what is a tag group if you're not familiar? It's when you make groupings of your contacts that are easily accessible for you to access at a later date. So what you do is you go to your contacts and you're going to hand pick out which contacts you want to put into a particular group, and you'll give that group a title. Now, it's important to know that tag groups are a little bit different than quick lists. Tag groups are static, meaning the only way that somebody enters a tag group is if you add them manually. Same thing. If you want to remove them, you must remove the tag in order to get them out of that group. So what are some scenarios and what we might use tag groups for? We might use them when creating a call or an email list from maybe an acquired marketing list, or maybe we are taking on another advisor's book of business. I also thought that tag groups could be a great way to help follow up with some prospects that might have gone cold over time or quote unquote fallen through the cracks. So I'm going to show you how we can kind of revitalize some of our previous prospects in our Redtail CRM. All right.
A couple things about tag groups is that everyone can create them. You don't have to be an administrator. They're not limited to that admin access. And just a caution about tag groups, because we always want to give our safety tips, right, Austin? They can get out of hand very quickly, right? That tag group list can add up very quickly. So think of these as not only static, like Austin said, but also for finite. They're for a finite period of time. For a short period of time, typically, they're a group that you're going to use and then get rid of that grouping for whatever reason.
All right, awesome. So let's go ahead and take a look about how we can make tag groups in Redtail CRM. So I'm just going to slide on over here into Redtail CRM here on my Today page. Now, before I start, I just wanted to do a brief mention on how do we get contacts inside Redtail or that marketing list that we might have acquired. We can either go to the, looks like my mouse has ghosted me here. There we go. Sorry about that. All right, so we can go to the plus button here and we can go ahead and add the contacts one by one by just choosing the plus button and contacts here. Now, if you've acquired a large marketing list, that might be a very cumbersome task to go through and individually add each of those contacts. And so another method that you can use is the spreadsheet import method. If you're curious on how that works, what I would recommend doing is going to the question mark icon here in the top right corner of your database, choosing the Redtail Help Desk. And I'm just going to do a quick search for import contacts Excel. And Redtail is going to give me information about how I can take my contact, whether I bought that on a marketing list or maybe I acquired it from another advisor, and I can import that into my Redtail CRM. So the help desk documentation is all here. Just go ahead and follow along with this article, and it's going to teach you how to import your contacts into Redtail CRM. Okay.
So just like we talked about yesterday, the CRM is our contact management or contact relationship management system. So it's not just for those clients. If you're purchasing lead lists or you have just a lot of leads that are coming in frequently, you can use this import from Excel on a regular basis. It's not a one-time thing. You can definitely, we have many offices that do this weekly or even monthly. The only thing we ask when we're importing contacts is that there be a significant number of contacts on that Excel spreadsheet. Maybe if it's 5 or less, manually enter them into the system. But if it's more than, and they have a lot of pieces of information, then the spreadsheet definitely makes that data entry a lot easier.
All right, let's go head back to Redtail CRM and let's start formulating that tag group based off of that imported list. Now, I already took care of this before the fact, and I had my team import in my contacts. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the advanced search to identify those. So what I did is when I created my Excel spreadsheet import, I went ahead and labeled every contact with the source that they came from. In this case, I acquired a list from a popular podcast host. His name is Rave Damsey. I don't know if you ever heard of him before, but he provides me with some good leads from people that come and listen to his show. And so what I'm going to do is go to the contacts tab here. I'm going to go ahead and use the advanced search tool to go ahead and search for contacts that came from that source. So contact is going to be the type. The field here is going to be source. Operand, we'll choose equal to. And then finally, we'll go ahead and choose the source that they came from. So in this case, Rave Damsey. All right. And so here are the 10 leads that I acquired, I purchased from this source, and they go ahead and show up here in my search results. Now, another thing that you might consider is if you use a marketing list from the same source multiple times, you might want to add a qualifier here into your advanced search. So what I'm also going to do is click this and button here. And I'm just going to put a time frame around when those contacts were imported. So I'm going to use the search for contact created at, and then I'm going to look for contacts that were imported after this week by using the greater than. And what that does is it basically timestamps I'm only going to see the most recently imported contacts from the source. I'm not going to see every contact from that source. And we can go ahead and run that list. And again, I only have the 10 contacts at this point, so that's why my results stayed the same. All right, but just wanted to point that out in case you're using the sources multiple times. So now that I've got my search here, what I want to do is I want to add these contacts to a tag group. And to do that, I'm just going to go ahead and select them all from the list by choosing this shop checkbox here, heading over to contact options, choosing bulk actions, and add to tag group. Now that was a couple clicks, so let me do it one more time, just in case you didn't follow. We're going to select the contacts by choosing the top checkbox. We're going to choose contact options. We're going to choose bulk actions. And then we're going to choose add to tag group. So at this point, what I want to do is I want to just go ahead and add a title for my tag group. So that way, when I want to access this list in the future, I know which one I'm looking for. So I'm going to call this my March prospect call list. Okay, so I'm just making myself a basic call list here for prospects that I'm going to reach out to in the month of March, and I'm going to add them to a tag group. Now, I want to show you guys a second method for also sourcing contacts as well. And so let's say, for example, your business model isn't I'm buying, leads or I'm acquiring other books of business from advisors. Instead, you get your leads more organically, maybe from your website or from social media or however you go about marketing. What I want to encourage everybody to do, no matter where you get your leads from, is I want you to do this report, and it's called the No Contact Report. And here we go. I'm going to show it to you here. It's under the Reports tab. We're going to come on down here to Contact Reports and choose the No Contact Report. Now, the reason I want to show you this report is because there might already be a lot of prospects or former leads in your database that you can probably revitalize because it's been a certain time frame since you've last reached out to them. So I would bet that somewhere in your database, there's probably some prospects. And if you're going to find them anywhere, you're going to find them here on the No Contact Report.
This is such a good point because there a lot of time and money and resources go into new business development, right? Mm-hmm. And getting these pieces of contact information or this contacts, it's a lot of resources. So what this report shows is actually who has not been contacted. It's a way of looking at what is not in your system. It's kind of like, I think it's a magic trick in a way, right? So the other reports will show you what notes you have entered, how many client reviews you've had, and really just give numbers to what your office is doing and what everyone in your office is completing. Mm-hmm. But this report gets to show you what's missing. Yep. And we like to say at Redtail, if it's not in Redtail, it didn't happen. So this report is showing you what didn't happen.
Yep, exactly. So how do we find the contacts? We're going to start with filtering this report to just our prospects. We're going to go to the filter option here, and I'm going to set the time frame. How far in the past do I want to look for contacts that I haven't contacted? So for me, I'm going to look for contacts where it's been over a year. We had a crazy 2020. some people's financial situation has probably changed. So it might be time for me to reach out to some of those prospects. Maybe some of those former no's might now be yeses with the way the state of the market as it is today. All right, I want to filter for my statuses of just my leads and prospects here. I don't want to put my clients on this list, right? Because that would be a different search, and we'll cover that in client management later. But today we're just going to focus just on the leads and prospects. So I'm going to narrow down my search by those two statuses. Now, I also have the option to search by no notes entered, no completed activities added, or both. So in this case, when I reach out to a prospect, I know that I'm going to enter in a note about that interaction. And so what I'm going to do is filter my criteria here for just no notes only. So I'm just looking for my contacts that are leads or prospects that do not have any notes entered in the last 365 days. Okay, and so when I apply those filters, Redtail is going to go ahead and find those results. So here I have 51 people who it's been at least a year since I've last talked to them. And for some of them, it's been never. I've never entered a note in them. So it's likely that I've never actually reached out to this person. And so what I want to do is I want to take these contacts and I want to add them into that March campaign.
I'd suggest one thing before you go there, Austin. Actually, there's one hidden feature on those filters. Go ahead and click filter again.
Yeah.
And this one hidden feature is always just a great value add to me. It's the bottom checkbox, head of household only. A lot of times we add people and then also their spouses to the database, right? But when we're adding notes, we're really usually only adding the notes to the head of household record. So a lot of these spouses, we may have contacted the head of household. So let's just see if that minimizes our list a little.
Yeah, let's check it out. We'll apply the filters. Yeah, that definitely brought down our list quite a bit. So let's go ahead now and take these 9 contacts and add them into our March campaign. To do that, we'll go ahead and click the search option here. And that's going to send these 9 contacts to the search results page. And the reason I want them here is because here I can use those bulk actions again to add them to the tag group. So let's do that. I'm going to go ahead and do the same process. I'm going to click the top checkbox here, select all the contacts.
So you don't actually have to do that if there's less than 50. It'll you don't have to select that, just so everybody knows.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm honestly, I'm in the habit of doing it just because I want to make sure that it's always in there. But good call out, Haley. Let's go to contact options, bulk actions. And I'm going to go ahead and choose the add to tag group. So here I'll just go ahead and find that same list where I did my marketing list from. So there's my March prospect call list, and I'm going to go ahead and add them to the tag group. So now I have a list of some of my former prospects that I haven't reached out to in a while, and also prospects from my lead. So to find that tag group, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and click on this little guy here at the top and choose tag groups and find my March prospect call list. And so you'll see here, I should have roughly about 19 records, and that's because we had the 10 from the marketing list plus the 9 from the no contact report, all combined into one. And this is going to be my hit list for March as far as reaching out to prospects go. Another place to find tag groups, in case you're curious, you can also go to the contacts tab here, choose lists and tag groups, and your tag groups will also be listed here as well. All right, so now we've compiled our data. I'm going to add just one more step here if you're going to use the tag group method, and that's because we want to make ourselves accountable to spending time to prospecting. And so what I always recommend what offices do is if they're going to implement any kind of prospecting process is that they calendar some time to come to this list. Set that reminder so you don't just set that list, spend the time making it and forgetting about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my calendar here, and I'm going to block out a time during my week that I'm going to spend prospecting or growing my business. And so I found that Tuesdays between 2 and 4 o'clock are the best time for me to go about doing my prospecting. And so I'm going to go to next Tuesday here. I'm going to choose 2 p.m. and I'm going to create for myself a prospecting power hour. Okay, so let's go ahead and create that. It's going to be on Tuesday from 2 to 4. I'll go ahead and set my type here as I'll be making some phone calls, and my category, of course, is going to be prospecting. And then what I want to do is rather than just adding the activity for just next Tuesday, I'm going to create and edit it And so that way I have a time devoted to making sure that I'm making these prospecting calls. And so I'm going to come on down here to recurrence, and I'm going to set this as a recurring activity. So I'm going to choose to do this weekly on Tuesday. If I want to, I can set a repeats end so that doesn't just repeat indefinitely into the future. I can choose when I want that repeating activity to end. So I'm going to do that at the end of March. We're just going to have it on Tuesdays for the month of March and see how it goes. And we'll go ahead and save that activity. By the way, you can use this for all kinds of activities. If there's a time in your calendar that you want to block off to devote to a specific item, you can do the same thing that you're doing for prospecting for other activities that you might need to accomplish during the week. All right, so now I got my prospecting power hour schedule. And so let's go ahead and fast forward. It's now Tuesday, it's 2 o'clock, and it's time to grow our business. And we're going to do some prospecting in Redtail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up that tag group. Again, we can find that by either going to the contacts and going to our lists, or I like using the shortcut of going to this little guy right here, choosing tag groups and finding my March prospecting call list. All right, so here are my 19 leads. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just smile and dial. I'm going to use the traditional method of just reaching out to these clients. My goal is just to get them to commit to maybe coming in for a discovery visit. So that way I can learn more about their financial situation and offer my services. Okay, so to do this, we can go ahead and let's run a report. Let's run a report to get all of their phone numbers in a concise list. And so that way I can reach out to them. So I'm going to go ahead and choose all of them here. I'm going to choose contact options, reports, and I'm going to get their phone numbers here and a nice little PDF. And if I want to, I can print this out and put it on my desk and use it, or I could just keep it open in a tab for me as I go through my calls.
So what I like to do instead is I don't like to run those PDF reports. You can totally do that, print it out, make your notes if you'd like to. But a more dynamic way to go through this would be to hover over the contact's name. And if their phone number is primary, then it's going to go ahead and display here. So remember yesterday when we talked about cleanup, primary was one of those foundational things that we talked about. This is one of those reasons. I can easily hover over their name, grab their phone number, like Austin said, dial and smile. And as an added bonus, go to the left of their name once I've ended that call with them and add a note directly from here to their contact record, or maybe an activity to follow up with them later. So you really can just actionably move through this list without having to go to a PDF and take notes and then input those notes back into the system.
Yeah, I definitely like that way better. I think I'm going to use that. So let's go ahead and make our first call, guys. We're going to do our first smile and dial here. And let's start off with Jenna. So I'm going to hover over Jenna's name. I'm going to see her phone number. I'm going to pick up my phone here, and I'm going to go ahead and enter in Jenna's phone number. Okay, and so let's just say hypothetically for the first one, I go ahead and I call Jenna and, oh, darn it, I got a voicemail, okay? So now what do I do? Well, like Haley says, we want to use this action icon here to enter in that note first. The reason we do the note first is because if it's not in Redtail, it didn't happen. And so I want to make sure that I record that I made that call on this day on this time. So I'm going to go to the note here and I'm going to enter in a note for Jenna. I'm just going to say left voicemail. Okay. I can go ahead and categorize that as prospecting super quickly. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next item. Another thing that you can do here after you enter your note is if I want to, I can use this action icon here to send an email right from Redtail CRM. So if I click this send email option, I left Jenna a voicemail, but I also want to follow up with that voicemail in an email so we have that extra point of contact. And so here I can go ahead and type out what I would have maybe said in my voicemail to Jenna in a written format. So that way, just in case she doesn't check her voicemail, she can go ahead and see my message here as well. And a really fast way to improve this process is to build that voicemail template, or excuse me, build that voicemail into a template. And so here at the top, if I choose my templates, I can go ahead and create for myself an introductory email that I can just quickly send off to Jenna right from Redtail CRM without having to open up Outlook or Gmail or whatever. I can send it right from Redtail and I can go on to prospecting to my next lead. And that's going to help me to get through my list faster, which is going to help me to make more contact with more prospects.
And then after you've reached out to a couple of people on this list, because you've got your prospecting power hour, right? So we've got just a little bit of time to get through some of these contacts in this tag group. Say we've done the first 5, can I go ahead and remove them from this tag group so that next time I open it, I'm not recalling the same 5 people?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you have a success, what I would recommend doing is probably just removing them from the tag group entirely. So what we can do is, let's say, for example, James, we went ahead and we made a contact, we scheduled a meeting, and so we don't need to prospect with James anymore. What I'll do is I'll just go ahead and open his record here, and I can remove him from the March prospecting call list because he's no longer a prospect at this point. We're going to have that discovery visit, and we're going to see if he's going to be a fit for our business. Now, what about Jenna, right? When we left her a voicemail, that can't just be the end, right? We can't just send a voicemail, send an email, and give up. We want to keep that person going. And so instead, what I'll do is I'll go back to my tag group here. And I'm going to basically take those contacts and I'm going to roll them over to the next call list. So for example, here, let's grab Jenna and Spike and Valerie. And let's say we all left voicemails for these people. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to my contact options, choose bulk actions, and I'm first going to remove them from this tag group. So let's take them off for March. And then with them still selected, I can go ahead and add them to the next tag group. So if I want to follow up with them again in April, I'll just go ahead and create a new list for April prospect call list and roll them on over. So that way they're already on my list, ready to go in April.
One little note back when we removed the single contact from the tag group, just to save time, what I like to do is right click over the contact's name and open them in a new tab of the browser. That's not even a Redtail feature, but it's one of my favorite features to point out so that you can just jump over to the other contact record and still have the tag group open on this page as well.
Yeah. Also, I'll add to that, if you are using Mac, you can actually just hold down the command button on your keyboard and click, and that will open up. Same thing on Windows. If you hold down the control button, you can go ahead and click on the name. That is left clicking on the name, and it will go ahead and open up in a new tab for you as well. So use those keyboard shortcuts to open up contacts quickly.
So we had a question come in. I'm confused on tag groups versus workflow. So you use the tag group to reach a prospect, and then once you reach them, you start the workflow. This is one different method for reaching out to prospects. I'd say this is a great process if you don't, this is a great method if you don't have a process already in a workflow, or maybe you're just trying to handle historical prospects that are not part of your new workflow process. Because anytime we implement a new process, that's only for the contacts going forward, right? There may be a backlog, like Austin pointed out in our no contact report, of prospects that have just built up over time that we want to maybe give one last reach out to see if they're going to come on board or not.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Haley. Right now, we're just showing you guys the toolbox. So I'd say, like, this is your drill, right? This is your drill. We're going to be just drilling down these contacts. We're just trying to basically feel out what's their interest. Do they want to talk to me again, or do they want me to go away forever, right? And so we can go ahead and narrow down that list in bulk using a tag group method. But there are instances where, we want a little bit more control, and we might use something a little bit more different. Like maybe we're just going to use a screwdriver, right? A screwdriver and a drill do the same thing, but they do it in different capacities. And so let's go to the next tool, Haley. The next one I wanted to explore was called opportunities. So this is the opportunity tracker in Redtail. Some people call it the sales pipeline of Redtail CRM, and that's because the goal here is to move contacts from one stage to the next, to the next, to the next. Now, this is going to be a little bit different than our tag group, because with a opportunity, it's going to be more of a hands-on, multi-step sales process, right? With the tag group, all we're doing is we're just making a call, send an email, just trying to gauge interest. With opportunities here, we're actually going to be working them through that sales process and getting them closer to basically committing their business to us. Okay, however you might define that. And so what are some scenarios to use? Again, hands-on multi-step sales processes, like for example, setting up a discovery meeting with a new referral. Opportunities also can track monetary values. So for example, you can give opportunities an amount or track your revenues with an opportunity. So if knowing the monetary value of that opportunity is important, you might consider using opportunities. And then I also like opportunities because they're a little bit more flexible than maybe your workflow, your tag group, where we're going to make a call, we're going to send an email, we're going to make another call, we're going to send an email, right? It's a very stringent process versus opportunities kind of give us the freedom to go as we need to get that person to commit their business to us. And so let's go ahead and take a look at them. All right, so we're back here in Redtail CRM. I'm going to click away from my tag group, and I'm going to go to the opportunities tab here on the left-hand side. Here are a list of our opportunities. I can toggle between both my active and my closed opportunities here. So I have a couple ongoing at the moment, but let's go ahead and add a new one. And so to do that, I can either click on the new opportunity button here, or I could choose the plus button here and choose opportunities. So when we add an opportunity, the first thing that Redtail asks us is to give it a title. So in this example, I'm going to use disability insurance. So we have a client, his name is Tim Taylor, and he does a lot of home improvement projects, some of them, not always up to code. And so his wife, Jill, is just a little concerned that, if an accident were to happen to to Tim, would their family be okay? And so we think that a viable option for them might be to consider using disability insurance just to protect themselves in case of an accident for Tim. And so that's the opportunity that we're going to use today. So I'm going to give it a title. I'm going to call this disability insurance. And I'm going to go ahead and just give it to a name. I'm going to say the Taylor family. Okay. And so if I want to, I can even add a little bit of a description about what I just described to you. So Tim is prone to accidents. The Taylor family would like to protect themselves.
The description might contain general information about the opportunity. It could be where you put where this opportunity came from, how they contacted you in the first place, just general information, more FYI for anyone else who's going to be jumping on the opportunity and viewing it. So think of that as just general information. Anywhere you see a description box in Redtail, I feel like they're skipped a lot of the time, right? Oh, I don't have to give additional information. I know why it's here. Well, of course, you know why it's there when you're entering it, but I would challenge everybody to utilize those description boxes. If you're half as forgetful as I am, they are very helpful in reminding you later where that opportunity came from, why it was initiated, and what's really going on with it. So that next field there, that type at the very bottom, that's going to show whether it's new or existing business. Those are the only two options. This list cannot be added to. New business would mean the Taylor family, they're not current clients in any capacity, but existing business, maybe they already have like a financial plan with us or financial planning services. So we're just adding to an existing client business in that sense.
We can also set what's called a permission for this opportunity. What this does is if we have multiple advisors working in the same database, we can basically restrict access to visiting this opportunity. So for example, here, I'm logged in as Tucker. If I set the permission here for user Tucker, only when I'm logged in as Tucker will I be able to see or access this opportunity. For all the other advisors in the office, they won't see anything about the Taylor family or this disability insurance opportunity. It's like it's completely invisible to them. Same thing goes with the team as well. So if there's a team, maybe Tucker has a team of people that he uses, we can go ahead and sign this to Tucker's team. So that way you either have to be logged in as Tucker or a member of Tucker's team in order to access this opportunity. To everybody else, it's like it doesn't even exist. And so we'll go ahead and add the opportunity now, and it's going to take us to the opportunities detail page. Now, the very first thing that I always do when I enter a new opportunity is I link it to the contact. And the reason why I do this is because I want my hard work here to be linked to the contact record. I don't want to have separate information in the opportunities section that's different from the information in the contacts. I want everything to be linked. And so for that reason, I'm going to link it here to both Tim and Jill Taylor. All right. The next thing I do is I enter in the next step. So what do I want to do next, right? This is where I talked about the flexibility of opportunities. I can do whatever I think is next, right? It doesn't have to necessarily follow the process every single time. I know the Taylors, I know what needs to happen next. And so I'm going to enter in the next steps. So I'm going to say, we need to set up a discovery visit. Okay, so we're going to set up a discovery visit. We're going to analyze their needs. We're going to see, how much of the insurance amount you think was going to be acceptable for them. And so we got to have a meeting to discuss. All right.
I like to think of the next steps as the sticky note on the opportunity. What am I planning next? This is a free text field. You can put whatever you want. It doesn't always have to be streamlined, like set up discovery visit. You could even fill this out with like, I don't know where this is at. I need to check on it. The next field over here on the right-hand side is the close date. There are a couple schools of thought when it comes to when you should fill out the close date. I'm in the camp that you're going to fill out the close date when the opportunity closes. Is that the same one that you're in, Austin?
So I partially agree with you. I definitely think that the close date reflects the date that the opportunity is to close. But what I like to use the close date for also is to be the due date for the next steps. So what I'll do here is I'll set up for the discovery visit and I'll say, maybe I want to get that done before Friday. And I'll go ahead and set my close date for Friday. Now, when I go to update my next steps next time, I'm going to go ahead and update my close date, and it's going to get pushed further and further out until eventually it's going to arrive at that close date that Haley's talking about.
So this kind of applies to what we talked about earlier, right? Where there's a lot of right ways to use these features in the system. The way that you're talking about using it, I wouldn't have a workflow in addition to using the opportunity that way, because you're just moving through this process at your own pace and not set on something as standard as like a workflow process, for example. So that would be a great reason to fill out the close date, is to use that as your timeline if you didn't have a workflow. But that's where we like to give the training answer, right? That any way you're using Redtail is ultimately what's right for your office. And this could be a way to start using opportunities initially. Ideally, our best practices would be to have a linked workflow over on the right-hand side, which is more guided and guiding you through a standard process. Or you may have exceptions where you have a standard opportunity workflow, but then you have that high net worth client who you really want to work with more hands-on, and they would exist outside of that workflow process.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of opportunities. It's all about flexibility. You get to drive the ship here and determine how you want to proceed next. All right, next up is the stage drop down here. And the stage drop down is where we get into the pipeline version, right? So the goal with opportunities is to move clients from one stage to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, right? And so what we can do is we can use the stage drop down here to indicate where are we at in the process. Very similar to what we learned about with workflow steps yesterday, right? It answers the question, where are we at with this person or this opportunity? And so here I have some already established in my database. Here's my process for life insurance. I have also just a general process for my NB, new business, or my EB, my existing business. But what I want to do is I actually want to create my own custom stage process here specific to disability insurance. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this opportunity and I'm going to sidestep for a second here. And I'm going to go update my stage dropdown. To do that, I'm going to go to my name in the top right-hand corner. I'm going to choose the manage your account section. And I'm going to come on down here to manage database lists. Now, as we learned yesterday in contact cleanup, you got to be an admin to be able to do this. All right, on our manage database lists, we're going to go to this right-hand menu and we're going to scroll on down until we find our opportunity stages. And here I can go ahead and customize my stage dropdown to fit what it is that I need. So I'm going to go ahead and do a new process here. We're going to say that this is for existing business, okay? And I'm going to give it the dash of DIS for disability insurance. And I'm just going to go ahead and put in my stages. So the first thing we're going to do, of course, is the discovery and needs assessment. Okay, we'll add that stage. Then I'll go ahead and create my stage number 2. At this point here, we're going to go ahead and, I got to do my pre-qualifiers here. EB, we'll do dash
So while
DIS.
Austin is doing that and adding these different stages for the disability process, we're showing a very detailed stage list. This is not, you do not have to have something like this in your database. This is extremely detailed and we have several different options to go through here. You could absolutely have something more general that just says data gathering, proposal, sign and confirm, and then that could work for any different types of opportunities that you're working with. We're just showing, again, a more specific process. One other thing about your stages is that there are 2 system types that cannot be deleted, and those are your closed lost and your closed won. Those are the only 2 ways to close out an opportunity. So the only reason you would add an opportunity in the first place is that you have already qualified that prospect or qualified that opportunity. So this is not the first place that you're putting the prospect into the database. That's why we add them as a lead or a prospect first, and then the opportunity comes subsequently or after they are a contact in the database. First, we need to know who they are. Then we need to qualify. Do they meet our ideal client standards if we have those? Or are they going to be interested? And then once we can put really just a number to the name or a number to that relationship, that's when we open the opportunity. And that way we're not closing lost a ton of opportunities without any numbers to them.
So we got our stages built now. Let's go ahead and apply them back to our opportunities. I'm going to go to the opportunities tab here. So I'm going to view my active opportunities. There's disability insurance for the Taylor family. And now I can go ahead and put them into the appropriate stage. Okay, so first up is a discovery and needs assessment. It is already typed as existing business. Then we can go ahead and assign the opportunity if we want. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and assign this to myself, Tucker. Again, this is different than permissions. Permissions, again, prohibit ability to access. What assigned to just basically delegates ownership. We could also give it a source as well. This is important for knowing where did this opportunity come from. So for example, if Jill found us by searching on the web, we might go ahead and source this as a website lead. And so that way we can analyze where are most of our opportunities coming from. And then finally, we have the amount, the projected revenue, and the actual revenue. Now, at this point, in this particular instance, we don't necessarily know what the amount is going to be until we have the discovery visit and see what the need is. Same thing with revenue and actual revenue. We don't know quite what the revenue is going to be at this point, so we're going to go ahead and just proceed without it. So next step is going to be to have the needs assessment with Jill and Tim. So maybe I go ahead and I pick up my phone and I call them and we have a discussion. Maybe I schedule a meeting. Regardless of how you're doing it, what you're going to do is you're going to have that meeting with Tim and Jill. And then when you're finished, you're going to come back to the opportunity here and you're going to enter in your notes, because if it's not in Redtail, it didn't happen. And so down here at the bottom of my opportunity, I have the ability to enter in my notes about that meeting. So I'm going to go ahead and just enter in a note to this opportunity and add the note. So here I'm just going to go ahead and put in some of the information that I gathered during the meeting with Tim and Jill. So we found out that Tim is, let's see, so we'll do height and weight because that's important for insurance. So he is 6 foot 1 inches and 195 pounds. He is not a smoker, so we'll say no. And his zip code is 98765. And again, we can continue going ahead and putting in the information that we gathered during the meeting.
If it looks like you're entering standard information, like we're consistently going to be entering the same information, we could use a template here. Some of this information also has fields on the contact record. I would just like to point that out. But yeah, if we're going to be filling out the same information within this note, then you can definitely use a template. One really important thing about opportunity notes is that they do not also show on the contact record. So whatever you do, do it consistently. If you want this note to only live within this opportunity, that's totally fine. You can intentionally choose that. Just know it's not also going to show on the contact record. It will only be within this opportunity.
Yep. And if we want to link it to basically having that note also show up with Tim and Jill's record, I can add them here as an additional linked contact. So if I go ahead and just type in the Taylors here, I can go ahead and link that to this note to their records. So linking by putting in Jill and Tim's name here, it's not going to save just the opportunity. So not going to save the note just the opportunity, but it's also going to copy that to both Jill and Tim's record. And so I can access it in both places. And so I'll go ahead and save this information, whatever information that I need to gather from that meeting in order to open the application. I'm going to go ahead and head back to the opportunity at this point. And now it's time to update my next steps in my stage. So the next step here is to do the account opening and do the tests. And so my next step is going to be follow up, or let's do research carriers. So I'm going to go ahead and shop around the rate here with the different insurance carriers, and I'm going to find the best spot to go ahead and have Tim and Jill go ahead and open up their disability insurance. Okay. So for time's sake here, I am going to speed things along just a little bit. We're going to have to move to the closed opportunity. Didn't have time to go through everything here, but let's go ahead and let's just say that we completed this opportunity, right? We were successful, and Tim and Jill decided to open up the insurance and policy. And so let's go ahead and update it to closed one. This, of course, is going to take it from an active opportunity to a one opportunity, and we can go ahead and put in our amounts. So they decided on a $200,000 policy. My projected revenue on that was about $2,000, and actually that ended up what I ended up with. So now I have $2,000 that I gained in revenue from helping out Tim and Jill with this insurance opportunity. So I'll go ahead and save it. And you notice that it's now gone here off my opportunities. And the reason why is because it's been updated to closed. So here's my closed opportunities, and we can see the different opportunities that I have closed. Now, if I want to, I can actually report on some of these using either a PDF or an Excel spreadsheet. So what I'm going to do is I've been on a streak. This is my third policy that I've opened up this month. And so what I want to do is I'm going to set my filters for the dates. I'm going to say that this is going to be between this last Sunday and then also all the way up to the end of the year. I'm going to set my opportunity stage for closed one, and I'm going to show just the opportunities that Tucker has won. So here we go. We're going to filter our reports, and it's going to show me how successful Tucker has been. Now what I can do with this information is I can go ahead and click this export button here, and I can go ahead and calculate my commissions based off of how successful I've been completing my disability insurance opportunities. So that Excel sheet should have opened up here. Let's see if we can find it. Okay, let me go here, my downloads. We'll go ahead and open it up here. There we go. So now we can go ahead and see these are the opportunities that we've won in this time period here. So if I want to, I can go ahead and use my actual revenue here to calculate how successful I've been. I'm just going to use a simple sum feature here in Excel and calculate my success. So I've made $7,500 this month, and my commission on that is going to be about 20%. So I'll go ahead and multiply that by 20%. And look at that. I can do calculations based off my opportunities. So Redtail stores the data, and then I can use the power of Excel to do my calculations based off my opportunities. So that, in summary, is the opportunities tool. I did promise one more tool, and we're getting close to our time limit here. So we're going to need to go through this a little bit fast, but don't worry, we did cover a lot of this yesterday, and that is the workflows tool. So using a prospecting workflow tool. When do we use a prospecting workflow tool? I like to recommend it for offices that are just too busy or too stressed to prioritize prospecting, right? We want to make it automatic. We want to have those tasks showing up so that way they can just focus on those tasks and not have to check the opportunities tab or check their tag groups, right? It's going to show up front and center on their today page and their calendar to complete those workflow tasks. I also like to use it when we have multiple people involved in the workflow process. So, for example, if Haley and I are both working on a prospecting workflow and the tasks bounce back and forth between us both, usually best to use a workflow in that case, because then I don't have to create activities on Haley's calendar or shout down the hall, say, hey, Haley, I opened up that account for Tim. Can you go ahead and follow up with them? Right? It's a lot easier to just have the workflow task automatically show up in their CRM system, and they can go ahead and complete that. And then, of course, we're going to use prospecting workflows when the process is defined. We don't have to go left or right, right? We know where we're going, and we have a clearly defined process that we're going to work with. So let's go ahead and demo this one more time. We're going to go over to our Redtail CRM. And if you remember yesterday, we learned about automation templates and how automation templates can automatically link workflows to a contact when we add them as a lead or a prospect. So I have a new prospect today. His name is Ricky Redtail, and he called into the Brave Damsey show, and he was a little bit concerned about what was going to happen to his pet Chihuahua Chainsaw if something were to happen to him. And so I'm going to reach out to him.
Very concerned.
Yes, of course. And so we want to make sure that Chainsaw is taken care of just in case anything happens to Rick. So I'm going to reach out to Rick, and I'm going to offer my estate planning services. So all I need to do at this point is go to the plus button here, choose contacts, and I'm going to enter in whatever information that I have about Rick. So I'm going to go ahead and put in here, Ricky Redtail. If we have information about his job and his family, awesome, we can go ahead and put that in there. For time's sake, we're just going to go ahead and enter in a name and a phone number. Here we go. Going to put in Rick's phone number here. Feel free to give him a call anytime if you need help with Redtail. And let's go ahead and go down here. Now, this is the important part, right? We want to make sure that we set the status to either lead or prospect, because that's what's going to trigger our automation, as we learned yesterday. So let's go ahead and put in Rick now as a lead. And we're going to go ahead and just save the contact. And so without any additional effort here, all I've done is just put some contact information for Rick in here. We can see that he's been added with one active workflow. And that means the workflow process has already begun. If we scroll down here, we can see that Tucker's been assigned to give him a call and send him an email. And if you remember, workflows show up in a lot of different places, right? Catherine, she preferred to see him on her Today page. So going to the Today page here and seeing him on the workflow task to do today, or within the workflow task section. I like them on my calendar, but let's stay here on the Today page for today. And let's go ahead and give Rick a call. And let's go ahead.
I think we've shown our workflow, right? We definitely are cutting into our break a little bit. So we're gonna invite Curtis and Catherine back for our break time, so everybody has a chance to run to the restroom before the next session. But the whole process there, right, is we can use opportunities, and then we will eventually build to workflows. Or maybe we can use opportunities for that more personal experience, but then we can use workflows when we want to systematize it, when we want to delegate it. If you've heard any of my trainings before, I'm a big advocate of hiring an intern or going down to the local high school or college and getting someone to help out with some of those more lower level tasks where they're just reaching out and letting somebody know about your business and what's available. So hi, Curtis. Hi, Catherine. How's it going?
Good. That was great. I love listening to that. That was great. It's really good to see how you can really choose to use like opportunities or workflows or a combination of both. So I saw a lot of questions coming in. It's like, well, should we do it this way or this way? I just want to point out, like, you can do it either way. You can use both tools. We just want to point out all the different ways you can possibly use Redtail for prospecting. So I do love that we got to show that off.
And I gotta say, you guys are doing a phenomenal job today on keeping those questions within the Q&A. I think I only saw like 2 slip in on the chat, so I didn't miss any of those. So shout out to all of you guys for helping it make it just a little bit easier on us. It's been a very good job on you guys. But I do have to say, guys, I saw a question pop up from Adriana, I believe, might have been Adriana. Yeah, Adriana this morning, who I thought would be a good question to ask during break. And it was, what is a feature of Redtail that you're still learning about?
Yep. So keep in mind, we are on break for about 7 more minutes. So don't worry, you don't have to
listen to us.
Listen. You guys don't have to listen to this part. We're not going to be teaching like anything in the agenda during this time. Sorry. So what was the question again, Catherine? What's something you're excited?
What's a feature you're actually still learning about?
Is that to us or is that to our users?
That's well, I think it was kind of a both. So that can be both for us as well as our users. So if anyone has one of those where they're like, oh, I've been working on this, pop it into the chat. We love to see what you guys are putting in as well. But I was curious just to see what we would even say too.
Oh, I'm curious what a client review is. I have no idea.
This is an obscure concept I've yet to uncover.
I know I'm presenting on that in like an hour, so I'm doing a little research on it.
But let's see. But in all honesty, I don't know if it's really considered like a feature. But something that I'm always learning about is just integrations as a whole. And that's only because they're always evolving and there's always new ones that sometimes I don't even realize. Then I'm like, oh, what's this? So it's not really like in Redtail, but it is something that works very well with Redtail. Haley, Austin, what do you guys think?
I would probably double down on the integrations conversation as well. I mean, Redtail exists in this ecosystem that is just all kinds of different softwares, and no 2 advisory offices typically use the same software. And so kind of understanding how Redtail fits into these different softwares and how these different softwares fit into Redtail it's pretty much a full-time job. And I got the luxury of being able to host our integration partner webinars, where I get to actually meet the people who built these integrations and kind of pick their brains and get to show our audiences all about how those integrations work. But like you said, Catherine, it's an always ongoing task of learning how Redtail fits into these, because it's always changing.
Only because I see it here. Curtis, this is for you. Sage says, sounds like you need a financial advisor so you can experience the client review. Hit him up.
Oh,
Can
man.
vouch for Sage. Curtis, you should absolutely have a client review with him. And Sage, I apologize in advance for how.
Are we being prospected right now?
So it looks like we've got workflows can feel overwhelming. 100%. I can definitely relate to that. Broadcast emails. That's always a good one that's come up every now and then. Let's see.
I stepped away for a second. Was this our favorite Redtail feature or
a feature we're still learning?
Honestly, like mine in itself is like, even though I call myself the workflow wizard, like we got those fun little titles. Workflows are ever changing. Like there is, every time I talk to somebody, a new office, about workflows and how they're doing it, I learn something else and what makes more sense to them. And that's why we always say, it's like, even though what we're training is like, here's a best practice, everybody does it slightly differently. So that's what I like to learn about, is how do you do it slightly differently? Then it might improve me and how I train other people. So, and that's being on the training team for over 6 years. Like I'm still constantly learning about how people use workflows. I love it.
I really hope some advisors on the call get a kick out of this one, but for me, it's accounts. Accounts are my Achilles heel. I cannot, like, I think I signed up for the Securities and Exchange, the SIE, the Securities Industries Essentials. That doesn't make a lick of sense to me. I can talk all day about leads, prospects, clients, relationships with each of those people, how to move a client to deceased or inactive, and the relationships they're in. But if you start talking about account types and issue dates and assets within those accounts, I'm pretty much lost. So I'm always learning the accounts feature and how to utilize that best in Redtail.
Hey, Austin, I saw this question pop up about inquiring minds from Sarah. They are asking, what's with the tacos? Do you want to explain what those rooms are?
So this is the taco room here at Redtail HQ in Sacramento. So yeah, this is from Puestos Tacos. I've actually never had the luxury of actually visiting that. I need to go, but I've heard they're delicious, and they're a Redtail favorite for sure.
San Diego Presto Taco, best tacos. But we have 2 other rooms. So essentially we have a bunch of these murals, like these, like the tacos behind Austin, throughout the Redtail offices. There's one where it has Legos in the background. Another one has like rockets. Even we have one of like the US, like has the whole map and just all these different crazy cartoon things. Absolutely love it. So the taco honestly is probably one of the best backgrounds, I think.
It's not virtual either, I promise.
Mine's an actual virtual image. It's just more of a messy room behind me. It's just
I can't judge today, Curtis, because I moved into a room that it's kind of the catch-all.
No,
I'm looking around. I'm like, oh,
the fact that you have these white brick walls is telling me that it's like you're in some sort of institution right now.
Yeah, Rick didn't tell you.
You've been in a prison.
He had checked me in yesterday. I'm not allowed to leave now.
We've been telling Catherine for the whole of quarantine she needed to do like little hash marks behind her on the brick walls.
Oh my goodness, I'm gonna do that. Just all these little hash marks.
Just start putting some like weird cryptic language to like make it look like I officially lost my mind.
Next RTU Online theme is going to be Castaway.
Oh. So it looks like we have a question here from Juan. So, hey guys, sorry I'm out of the loop. Did we have a first day of training yesterday? So we did have kind of like day 1 yesterday that covered workflows for a good portion of it. And then the other concept was cleanup. We are kind of interweaving everything we talked about yesterday today. So if you do go back and watch it, it'll definitely help as well. But we are kind of covering what we went over, just a little less in depth of more of the how-to. It's more of the let's incorporate it into topics.
And yesterday and today is all being recorded and will be posted on our help desk sometime next week. So it is available. You can actually just search training videos, or even RTU Online will have it posted with that like next week. I believe, I'm not sure. Rick, are we sending out an email on that?
I don't believe we're sending out an email regarding the recordings. They will be posted. The biggest thing I'd recommend is going to our YouTube channel, hitting that subscribe button, hitting that little bell icon like you always hear, so that you're notified when new videos are posted to our YouTube channel. That's the best way to get notifications there. We will be sending a follow-up later this week in regards to the session. It'll include the slides. It'll include a feedback survey. It'll include some additional information. But
So
keep an eye out next week.
Friday, we're sending the email that will have the survey where they get to possibly win one of the 3 prizes of Redtail swag.
Yep, it's a total random raffle. We'll be sending out some Redtail gift boxes, cool stuff in there. We'll be reaching out to the winners. So,
and then Rick, I've just been using my phone to record the session from my computer.
Oh my gosh, no. Okay. That's a
On that note.
perfect segue. Catherine and I are like, okay, guys, time to get out of here.
Yeah, on that note, in all seriousness, we're going to talk about onboarding. So we're going to say bye to Curtis and Austin for the time being. Haley's going to stick around, and we are going to talk about the session of from prospect to client. So this morning, Haley and Austin talked about all those concepts you can use for prospecting, but now we get to talk about that exciting part of they agreed to stick around with us. So they liked us enough, or at least sufficiently enough to say, yep, we'll work with you. So we've completed that first part. We're going to talk about clients. So again, we're going to talk about those pieces that we did do yesterday, that whole cleanup using those fields there. We're also going to interweave some workflow, some automation. So it's almost a little bit of a review from yesterday, but on how you can actually use those tools within the concept of onboarding. Does that sound like fun, Haley?
Oh my gosh, the most fun. I love, why does all this sound like online dating a little bit?
I don't know.
You're like, do they like me? And then
we've passed the 7-minute quick questions. We are going forward. Yeah, so you're right. This is kind of like date 2. They've said, yes, we'll return. So actually with that, it's a perfect way to segue into the first concept, which is giving them labels. So we're going to keep kind of that dating game for a second.
Sage just said they swiped right. So I had to carry that in.
Exactly. So we'll stick with that for a moment. We're going to roll with that because like I just said, we're actually going to start with giving ourselves this whole label. They've agreed to move forward with us. They swiped right. And we're going to update those status and categories. Now, you and Curtis spent all yesterday morning talking about cleaning up that data. And these were 2 fields in particular that are really important. And that's really just because we don't want to have 18 different options to pick from when they all really mean the same thing. So we want to easily establish who's our active clients, who's our prospects, who's our former clients, and then within those, segmenting that business with category. So we're going to hop into the CRM here. We're going to actually take Tim Taylor. So I guess we can say he's moving on with us here. We're going to update his contact record. So over here, I'm going to scroll down just a little bit until we see contact details. We see that status and category. Now, again, he agreed we're going to go ahead and move forward as active client. And we make all of our kind of active clients start off with that letter A. As they move on with us, they'll kind of move ranks within us, make us kind of, that first list. But that's the first 2 fields we really want to update to, again, help us figure out that they're no longer in that prospecting phase. They are legit coming on board with us. Now, those aren't the only fields that are of importance, right, Haley?
Right.
All right. So let's see what is something else that's really important to help with us in terms of this new onboarding concept.
I think one of them is easily, I would call it the most overlooked field in Redtail, and that would be the client since date. So there are 2 really essential dates to knowing when the relationship began with a person in general, and then when a relationship began with a client. So when a contact record is created, Redtail takes care of that for you. We've input the contact created date. And for anybody that you're entering in the system, they have a contact created date in that contact details section already displaying. Austin used that in our last session to search when certain people with certain sources were created. So that's a great way to see, well, when were they entered into my system? But another essential date to keep track of is the client since, and that's when they became a client. So when did that relationship change? It's your anniversary. I mean, we really call it the client since anniversary. So we want to input that date, and then we can celebrate that anniversary as the relationship goes on.
I would totally mirror that, actually. I feel like this is one of those fields that either people just aren't aware of it or they just don't find that value, which this can be incredibly valuable to help us figure out who's been a client with us for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. We never want to sit there and go, well, they came about sometime. We want to know exactly when that happened. Now, there's also obviously other things on this page that could really help add value, similar to that client since. Birthday, if you're going to send out birthday cards or at least even just pick up a quick phone call, that's something that you need to have entered. Marital status, if we're trying to have it so that way we know who's our single clients, who's our divorced, who are our families type of thing, that's also going to be something we want to have filled in. And just like birthday, we would want that marital anniversary. Now, he did tell me his anniversary, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in here. But that's, again, just that more added client service level, I should say. It's that added benefit. So
one thing that's often overlooked here, sorry, Catherine.
Oh, you're good.
One thing that's often overlooked here when it comes to the date of birth that I just love to train on is the date of birth reminder. So by default, that is always selected. If you're like me though, or if you have a client like me, I don't actually prefer celebrating my birthday. And clients may have a lot of personal reasons for that. I've told this story before on webinars, but I once sent a birthday card to my cousin in high school and I forgot he was Jehovah's Witness. And boy, did I hear it from him. Now, personally, I don't know if that's true for all of them, obviously, everyone who believes that, but he was very mad, sent it back, and was like, never send this to me again. So if you have any clients who just don't prefer that their birthday is celebrated for religious reasons or otherwise, unselect the enable date of birth reminder. Obviously, you still need the date of birth for other reasons, for forms and for account openings and other reasons within your own office, but that will take it off your calendar, that will take it off the birthday report, and that will take it off just all the reminders throughout the system when you're looking for birthdays.
Right. And then you can avoid that awkward situation and having to say, oops, sorry. So that's a very good call out, Haley. I'm glad you brought that up as well. Now, there's actually 2 more fields that I would also recommend. And this is really more so for those bigger offices. It's not to say that small offices wouldn't benefit from this, but filling out your servicing and writing advisor. Sometimes we'll get that question where it's like, well, how do I find my clients? I remember that advanced searching, and yes, it finds all my active clients, but it's finding everyone else's as well. This is yet another searchable field that you can help limit that advanced search. So we're not, again, kind of literally clicking into every single client. So I'm going to go ahead and pick some values here and then update that contact detail. So those are, again, just those first few things that seem so simple and yet so easily slip through the cracks that really should be incorporated with onboarding our client. Now, those aren't the only things, though. That's just the first part. The next shifts into more of those kind of, I don't want to say difficult concepts, but it's definitely one that a lot of people get confused with, and it's keywords and user-defined fields. Now, I believe you even did this, Haley, just a couple weeks ago. You did kind of a keywords versus UDFs versus tag groups. And it is something that, again, everyone gets really confused with, but it's really something that can help add value to the client themselves. Now, we do have a chart down here that kind of helps explain maybe just a hint of a little difference with the searchability and reportability and exportability. But one thing to remember with both of these is that you do have to be an admin to add a new value in the actual CRM. Now, we are going to hop back to Tim's record and add some, but I do want to just kind of clarify keywords really quick. And that really is going to be kind of an inherent yes or no question. You have a list of kind of values that you have. And if that person has that value that's met, you want to add it to that contact record. So we usually think of services. If you're an office that has investment clients, insurance clients, tax clients, but then you also run into, well, we bill them differently. Some are fee-based, some are hourly, some are billed in advance, some are billed in arrears. And then we also want to keep track of other things. This is where keywords are really going to stand out. The reason why we always say services should be in here is because Sometimes you might have a client who's a tax, investment, and insurance, and you don't want to add, again, 15 extra values for status when you can get away with adding in just all three of those for keywords.
The
Now,
goal is having as simple searches as possible, right? So when searching for active clients or current clients, we want to be able to run one search that gives us all of our clients. And then just by adding one other line of criteria, we can narrow it down to investment clients using that keyword, that searchable label on their record. And then we can narrow it down further and say those that don't have the keyword of tax client. And then we can email everyone and say, here are our tax services.
Exactly. And actually, in even an office I worked with the other day, they had a mutual agreement on what status was, on what category was, but there were just two advisors, one strictly focused on investment and the other strictly focused on insurance. So again, it came down to just one more layer where it was like hey, I just want to know this because maybe there's a new regulation that we have to let them be aware of. Maybe there's something else they just need to be conscious about. That's again what Haley's saying, is that extra search layer to narrow it down further. Now, Haley, do me a favor, explain user-defined fields a little bit for me.
Oh, I love explaining user-defined fields. So you just all became developers and you didn't even know it. It's my favorite joke, but it's so true. User-defined fields are where you, the user, define the field. Now, if you have a client intake form or something where you have the client fill out maybe their interests or their preferred beverages or their favorite sports team or whatever matters to your office, those are all user-defined fields. These are specific pieces of information to that client that you want to know or be able to reference for the future that Redtail does not already have fields for. So a user-defined field is not date of birth. Redtail has a field for that. It's not tax ID number. It's not maiden name. We have fields for those. A user-defined field may be pets' names. It may be preferred beverage. It may be favorite Major League Baseball team. Whatever pieces of information matter to you about that client. I always relate these to something that an advisor might quickly glance at before walking into a room with a client. So you can walk in and say, hey, how about them Cubs? And they think you remembered their favorite team, but you actually just really glanced quickly at their contact record. Any of these pieces of information, I truly believe, exponentially increase the value of your database for everyone in the office. And then later, whenever you go to do your succession planning and you maybe sell your book of business, this is all pieces of information that you've gathered over time and really surprises and delights the client when you bring it up with them in the room.
Exactly. There was, I don't think I actually told you about this, Haley. There was an office last month who every time they onboard a client, or at least get to, again, know their client, they ask them 35 questions, which seems like a lot. When they first told me, I'm like, whoa, what? But it's to help them get to know them on every level they have. And some of them are more basic, again, date of birth, what's your children's names, things like that, which we'll talk about in a minute. But some of them were, did you go to college? And if so, where? What are your pets' names? Because again, that's just something that some people treat their dogs like their children. I'm one of them. So when you remember those things, I sit there and go, hey, that's actually, I'm so glad you asked about that. It's that, again, added customer service level. So let's hop back into the CRM and let's give Tim some of these. So when you are actually basically on that contact details, if you scroll on down, you're going to see keywords and tag groups and user-defined fields right here. So we're going to actually add in a preferred method of meeting type, because again, we're still kind of scattered about. Some are working in the office, some aren't, but Tim has let us know that he prefers Zoom meeting. He still has kids at home. He doesn't want to risk them getting sick, things like that. So Zoom meeting is his preferred value. Now, one thing that's really different with user-defined fields versus keywords is this little type level over here. When I added that one, I only have 3 choices. That was based on how we set it up with a list of values. Some, like alma mater here, we're going to go ahead and add that one, is going to be in any text. And that's because I don't wish it on anyone to go in and add a list of values for every single college in existence. That's way too many. So over here, I can just come in here and say, Michigan State is where he went. There we go. and just type it in and you'll see that value. Now, keywords, a little bit different here. When I come over keywords, click add, I just get the whole list. So if I establish, yep, he's a 401k, direct, he's a fee-based, I'm literally just checking off the ones that apply for him. Now, again, what we were saying earlier with that admin is that this list is set up in that managed database list that was gone over yesterday on really cleaning that up. Again, this is why cleanup is important. We don't want to have maybe two of the exact same references and sit here and go, well, which one's the right one? We want to just easily work our way through the list and know exactly what we're picking here. And
For
then
some of you on this call, you might look at your keywords list and there may be nothing there, or there may be some like template import type keywords that Redtail's entered when we've imported contacts for you. For other offices, you may open up this list and there could be quite a long list. I think the longest I've ever seen was 300 at one point in time. That's a bit much. A lot of times when we import contacts from another system, we don't want to delete any information. Redtail doesn't want to assume what's useful and what's not. So we'll bring them over into your keywords and user-defined fields. If you delete them from the managed database list section, it will remove them from all contacts that they are on. So there is a way to clean it up that way. Just to bring cleanup into it, because Catherine knows I always default to cleanup in any conversation. Any important keywords that you're going to keep, add a symbol to them like we did in our list, and they will sort to the top of the list. Any keywords that you're really not sure about or you're planning on deleting, but you're not quite ready to pull the plug on just yet, add a Z to the beginning of that word, or Z underscore, and it will sort to the bottom of the list. So then they'll just all be at the bottom, and then you can maybe have a team conversation and say, is anyone using these? Let's delete them.
Exactly. And I know, again, we did talk about that yesterday, but it is very important, especially when you're onboarding a client. This is something that you're not just going to do once and then never repeat it. At least I hope not. We want to keep bringing on our clients. And this is something you want to make as easy and seamless as possible, really. So making our keyword list nice and simple, making our status, our categories, our user-defined fields as clean and clear as possible is really what's going to help not only ourselves, but everyone within the same office. A way I always like to kind of think of it, and I think you're the same way here, Haley, here is, if we hire someone brand new, are they going to be able to figure it out, or are we setting them up for failure by having a bunch of confusion in here with all of these different fields? That's always something to keep in mind. Approach it like you were brand new into the system. All right. Now we're going to kind of shift just a little bit and actually bring in yet two more fields that, again, were referenced yesterday. That's family and memberships. Again, this is something that we get asked quite a bit about. What do I do with a child that's over 18? Do I leave him in there? Do I delete him from the system? What do I do? And it's not to say that there's always like a definitive answer here, because some things always are variable, but an easy way to always think of family is that tax definition of family. Head of household, spouses, and dependents I can still claim. So if you do have someone that's over the age of 18, do you have to immediately remove them from the family on their actual birthday? Not necessarily. But if they are a client and they are now maybe their own family, then yes, you do need to remove them from the family because you can only belong to one at a time. Now, Haley, memberships are a little bit different, right?
Right. Memberships are where you put everybody else. These are for neighbors, friends, attorneys, any for reference items. A lot of times with advisory offices, we see that you guys have a tight network in your community and you want to know who knows one another or who knows who. So that's where memberships come into play. If you have a specific client base, maybe you specifically service teachers or police officers or anyone who works in these organizations or associations, memberships is a great way to identify who's a part of a certain teaching union or who's a part of a certain precinct. Or you can also keep track of who's a part of certain Rotary clubs or associations if you're involved in any community organizations like that. And then you can just go to the association contact record for Rotary Club or what have you, and pull up memberships and see all of the memberships that are related to that Rotary Club and who they are to you. Are they clients? Are they prospects? Are we getting good referrals from this group? And what's really going on with that relationship?
Exactly. So let's hop back in and let's just double check, because I do see a family name up here. Now, if you are ever just adding in a brand new one and we didn't add the family once we actually added the contact, you would actually see create a family right here. And if you click it, it would ask for that name first. Now, we do have the family name, but I actually don't have the family members in here. If I click add spouse and the contact already exists, I can actually just start typing out her name and that contact will appear down here. Now, if the contact's not in here yet, and that's someone that you want to add, you could also just add the name right here and immediately connects the two. Now, I'm actually going to go ahead and click on her here, click add spouse, and that's how we can immediately connect them here. Now, again, I also know he happens to have children. So if I come on down here, I think Brad might be, yep, he's part of his own family. He's old enough now. But I know
I always cheat and put in their last name too.
That also works as well. So we'll try that with the next one here. So we've got Randy. I know he also has one more little one. I believe it's Mark, but I can't be sure. Let's just do Taylor. Yep, Mark it is. And then we could pick that relationship from here as well. Now, just as a recap here, and anyone who's a fan of Tool Time kind of show the whole home improvement concept, Brad was not an option when I added it because Brad is actually an adult, has his own family, so I can't, again, link them to a family already here. Now, as another follow-up question that could also come up, it's not directly related to something in terms of onboarding, but I know this question's probably going to come up here. What if I need to remove someone from the family? How do I do that? You're actually going to click on, it kind of looks like a micro family tree. If you click on that here, it gives you that red option of remove the family. It does not remove that person from the CRM though. It's just disconnecting them from this family here. Now, memberships are over on the left. So we'll click on more and we'll come on down to memberships. Like Haley was saying, this is everyone else. Now, Haley, clarify one thing for me. Am I stuck with the default membership options or can I add more if I need to?
Goodness, no. You can absolutely. I know, I'm sorry. I was like, oh, I love this question. So yeah, our default options, I believe, are super generic. They're like spouse or parent or child. A lot of times you want to be a little bit more specific, like daughter-in-law, father-in-law, sister, brother, ex-spouse, deceased spouse, co-worker. We talked about this a little bit yesterday where I'm Curtis's friend or coworker, and then he's my workplace proximity associate.
Yeah, I called you my best friend, and you refer to me as your workplace proximity associate. Yes.
Thank you. I knew he would tune in.
Yep.
So that's one way to go ahead and define it. I had one great office. I loved working with them. They're in the Villages in Florida, big retirement community. And this is where they would put anyone who was dating very seriously, but not married, because getting married would mess with their retirement accounts. And they defined their memberships as live-in love-ins. So they were able to put in that relationship, and coming to memberships, they could identify who that live-in love-in was.
I love that, honestly. So that's the only reason why I wanted to bring that up is because we're actually going to connect Heidi, who, if anyone was on yesterday, we briefly added her in yesterday. She's a coworker for Tim, and coworker is not a default choice. So I wanted to give that heads up because I knew some people would immediately follow along and be like, where is this? Am I losing it? You're not losing it, I promise. That was something that we chose to add in here. Now, again, this is your choice. Do you have to add in everything that we have here? No, it's really what's going to be valuable for you. So if you have something like you need to keep track of the board of directors for a certain company, and that's not obviously something that's there, add it in. 401k providers, that's another one that I keep seeing pop up in there. Add that in there. So it's really up to you. It's just, again, you have to be an admin to add new membership codes. There's that theme there. So whatever it is that you are missing, make sure you kind of assemble that list and get those added in that managed database list. And actually, let me go point that out really fast because I know we've referenced that just a couple of times. So if you come up to your name and manage your account, down here at the bottom is where that managed database list, and membership options actually even has its own little spot. So as long as you see this list and or this, you do have the ability to add, again, statuses, categories, keywords, user-defined fields, memberships, sources, servicing advisor, all of those fields that we've already touched about, they're all going to exist back here.
So when you do go to membership options, can you click in there for a second?
Yeah.
So when we do go to membership options, say we were adding an ex-spouse option. So we're going to go to add, and we're going to add that relationship. So we're going to put in ex-spouse, or yeah, perfect. And then the contact types matter here. So you really can only divorce your individuals, right? I don't know of anyone who's married to their business. Maybe if you want to put that in there, that's fine. But let's just focus on what's more realistic, right? And they would do individuals. I once had a client who was so excited to put in his ex-spouse, no joke, into the membership sections here. He came in and added it very quickly. And then when he went back to the contact record, it was not giving him the ability to link her as an ex-spouse to his record. So we were like, what's wrong here? And he actually, under one of these drop downs, Catherine, he selected trust instead. So when he pulled it up, he was like, that doesn't make sense. I don't trust her anyway. Thanks for bearing with me, folks. Anyway, focus on those contact types, and then you'll be able to see the right relationships come up.
Perfect. So I believe we already added it, but if anyone else did need to add that, you definitely can from back here. And again, it's going to be instantly available for you. So if you do run into someone like Haley's client there who was very jazzed about that, you can go fix that immediately and get those relationships all fixed up there. All right. Now that brings us to the big topic. This is something, again, that's completely unavoidable. We get this on a daily basis, workflows. Now, we did spend a whole bunch of time yesterday really building those workflows, so we will not do that today, but it would have been remiss of me not to bring it up here because it is something that can be very useful when it is actually onboarding a client. But I wanted to actually take this time to say that workflows don't have to be that complicated. Yesterday, we made it 7 steps, had multiple tasks, had multiple target dates, had multiple outcomes, and that can definitely feel overwhelming. So whenever I hear anyone go, hey, I've looked at workflows and they just seem too much, I like to bring up this important information one because it's very basic, actually. It's just one step with multiple tasks, actually just set up as reminders, really. So on this one, we kind of had it as like a rough draft saying, okay, what are the fields that we want to make sure exist on a contact? So all of those things we just went over, if we're consistently forgetting to add the servicing advisor, we're forgetting to add the keywords, we're forgetting to add families or memberships, put it into this checklist type format. So that way, when you actually add that contact, you can really just literally go through and say, hey, I've done that. Oops, forgot about that. Let me go get that. So with this one, I'll just kind of show it in the database. We do have it already built out. So I'm going to come up to my name, or actually Tucker's name, come down to manage your account, come on down to workflow templates. And right actually at the top, we have this important information list. So again, this one's just a one-step workflow, has multiple fields we want to make sure are actually completed, and gives us actually 1 business week to really get that all in. So if you have anyone who's a little difficult to get all that information, giving yourself just a couple extra days can really help to just make sure we have that. This one also doesn't even have outcomes. So it really is a truly simple workflow that is more of just a checklist to make sure we're going through it. Now, this one pretty much incorporates all of the fields that we've gone through and a couple other ones like the date of birth and tax ID. But Haley and I were debating on really what everyone else kind of adds in. We've sat there and we're like, this is really inconsistent. We don't have everyone always on board the same way. We don't always hear the same things. So we wanted to get some interaction at this point in time. So we have a question at the bottom of the screen here. And I do apologize for anyone, if anyone's on YouTube, we don't have that kind of chat and QA function, but for anyone who's part of Zoom, what are some tasks that your office needs to complete for onboarding a new client? Put that in again to the chat. You can see what you guys are saying. Sometimes that can even help kind of give other people ideas on what might be missing in their process. So let's see what we have here.
Dawn
See-
says we send letters. Kimberly says a client experience survey. I love that. Surveys are so important nowadays. I feel like we get surveyed for everything.
I mean, we're even sending a survey. Shameless plug here. Fill it out so that way 3 lucky winners get a prize for it. Driver's license number. I'm glad someone pointed that out because that is such a field that goes under the radar.
And you can use
definitely put
that in 2 locations, right? You can put the driver's license information into the identification section in a contact record, but you can also use that as their picture if you don't want to creep on their Facebook or whatever.
So true. We also have, I'm glad someone brought this up. We have something from Anne here. Send links to Asset Map eMoney. So it's even pulling in other kind of integrations or other software that we might be using. Very good point to bring that up. I'm glad someone mentioned that. Let's see, tax returns. That's another thing that could be very useful. I agree completely. Let's see. I think I saw a couple more coming in. Routing and checking account number. Perfect. Statements. Perfect. Okay, so I'm actually going to take some of those because I want to, again, kind of reiterate how we can make this really customizable for us. So if we come on back and we say, hey, I want to add in driver's license as a field, I can come over to this new task, come on down here, click edit task and add in and driver's license.
Now, there's no wrong way to do this. A lot of times we'll see workflows where one task says collect client details, and then in the description, you've bullet pointed out all those essential details. Personally, I don't think you can have too many tasks. You are then making sure that if somebody truly put in the date of birth, they're checking off the date of birth, and they're not just glancing over maybe a massive list under the task and saying, oh yeah, I did all those 10 things, but they maybe only did 7 of them. So keep that in mind.
I'm so glad you said that because I do see that every now and then. They're like, I just didn't want to give us too many tasks. And then we just kind of all threw it on one person. And then that one person feels overwhelmed. Maybe break it up a little bit. So that way they can actually limit it out saying, hey, I've done this one. I've done this one. I got interrupted. I'll finish the rest after this phone call. So I've just added a couple in here just by adding that new task, add driver's license, upload previous year's tax returns. I did see really quick that question. I have no problem kind of pointing it out, but really what this is it's getting all of that information that you find specifically necessary, put it into a checklist. So I had actually yesterday, I don't know if you saw it, Haley, someone had said that they really didn't find workflows useful for them during the prospecting because it went so quickly. Mm-hmm. This is something where because things go so quickly, we might be missing a lot of those things. This is that backup to us. It's that second brain where our brains aren't cooperating with us those days. This will remind us to say, hey, do you legit have all of this? Or hey, if not, reach out and get this information because it's going to be necessary for us in a month, 2 months, 3 years from now. Who knows? We'll need that information.
I've even seen the same workflow tweaked just slightly, and you're going to be shocked because I'm going to bring up cleanup here, but applied as a cleanup workflow or an audit workflow where you can say, okay, well, I've never really cleaned up my data. I didn't really want to audit on a mass level because I have, 250 clients and I don't want to go list by list to make sure they all have tax IDs or dates of births. So instead, I'm going to bulk attach this workflow to all 250 clients. They each get their own version of this workflow. And then throughout the calendar year, your goal is to complete all of those tasks and make sure everyone has those essential pieces of information. So that is one way to go ahead and apply it as well.
Exactly. So again, if this was something that we wanted on there, we could always just come back up to Tim. We could always just manually. So this again is just a little quick recap. If I had added in and I realized, oops, I'm not sure if I did everything. I want to make sure that maybe even me or my assistant, who knows, I attach that workflow. I can always come up here, pick that workflow, and then go from there. So this again is just that more simple workflow. If again, you've tried workflows and you're finding them to be a little cumbersome or too difficult, try giving something like this a try just to get your feet kind of wet with workflows. And then that way you're not just jumping into the deep end and going, this is overwhelming. I don't need this. This might, again, just be that simple extra little step that is actually perfect for you. However, if you do want to make it more complicated, we could take kind of this same workflow and add to it. So this is, again, that same one we started with earlier. We set it as 5 days after I added it. So I had a whole week. And I've actually said that we could switch it a little bit. And Haley agreed with me that we could take this simple workflow and actually just expand on it, add in more of that onboarding meeting. If we're already scheduling a meeting, we obviously still want all of this information in there, but we also have to prep for that meeting, confirm it's still happening, send the Zoom link or prep the conference room. Who knows what we're doing right now? Then there's all that follow-up information, upload any signed documents we might have, enter any meeting notes, add the contact maybe to another software application or integration out there. There could be multiple steps that flow into it. So all we've really done on this one is actually just switched really the first step. Instead of it being 5 days after the target date, it's 5 days before the target date. And the target date this time is the actual physical meeting. So this, again, is going to be office specific. You do not have to make a workflow complicated. If you find you do need to incorporate something like an onboarding meeting, if you don't phrase it as an onboarding meeting, however you phrase it, you can definitely do that and have those kind of before, on, and after target dates. So I believe we actually have this one in as well. Let me just double check to make sure no one made it inactive or anything like that. So again, we'll come up to our name and come to manage your account. And then we're going to come on down until we see workflow templates. Going to be honest, I almost had it to manage database list for a second. I was like, wait, that's not right.
Autopilot.
It really was. I'm like, wait, that's wrong. So down here, we have that onboarding workflow option, which again, it's just taking actually that first few steps. I added one task just to call and confirm the meeting is still happening / send the Zoom link, and then just added the meeting as step 2 with a non-target date, put a couple tasks in here. Again, made it very simple. Do not feel like this is the end all be all task work here. And then had a couple of days after with the follow-up. So this is just taking that kind of core concept of the first one and just expanding it further. So that's always another option here, is that if you did start with that first workflow and then now you feel really comfortable, you can always adapt it. You can always clone it first and then adapt it if you'd prefer, to make it so it does actually have everything you're truly looking for. Now let's come back though, because we actually have some time here and I'm really excited because we can do one more thing that we brought about yesterday, but actually for onboarding, and that's automations. So I'm going to have Haley walk us through here this one because it's a status change. So let me get that first image up. But Haley, do you mind taking us through really what this one's representing?
Yeah, so this automation is going to help transition someone from a prospect to a client. It's a very exciting time. We're advancing in a relationship. We said they swiped right. I've never used that app, so hopefully right is the right way to say that. But it's exciting, right? And this is going to set off a bunch of different tasks that our office now needs to complete, because this is setting the bar for their relationship as a client going forward. So we want to make sure that we're giving them a consistent and great experience and setting the tone for what the rest of their time as a client of ours is going to be like. So the automation name, always name them something that clearly explains what they do. So this one is status change prospect to client. I'm a big fan of putting something in front of it like onboarding, so that all of your onboarding automations can sort together. And then the trigger event is going to be on the status being changed. So anytime someone edits a status, it has the potential to set this automation off. Then we want this automation to do this action. So when a status is changed, we want Redtail to link a workflow from a template. And the template that we want it to link is that important information list. It's going to copy that workflow and paste it onto Tim Taylor's record. But we don't want to stop there. That's where the button in the CRM becomes clickable. And this is how we get phone calls saying, why do I have 400 client death workflows? Because somebody made an automation and stopped at step 2. Sometimes you absolutely want to stop at step 2. Usually not though. So we want to definitely stress to add conditions to your automations and say only do that if the status is equal to active client. And that's really saying if the status is changed to active client, that this workflow will link. So we're setting up a gate, if you will. And anytime the status is changed, the system sets off a flag and says, a status is being changed. We should check on our automations. But then it validates, was the status changed to active client? If yes, then it's let through the gate. This workflow is linked. If no, that gate remains closed and the workflow does not link in those situations.
Exactly. So let's hop into the CRM and let's actually just build that really quick here, because unlike workflows, automations are pretty easy in terms of time, at least, to put them together. So we'll come on up to add. And like Haley, I am a big fan of naming the automation exactly how it sounds. So onboarding, prospect to client. I like to make it as simple as possible. Now, if you are also a big fan of putting in the description, use this automation anytime. Ooh, I could spell anytime we are bringing on a new client.
If you're testing something out, put that in the description. This is a demo. This is a test that I'm doing on this date. If you are in a database with anybody else, maybe put do not delete in big letters that are bolded. If you're in a database with me, then maybe put do not delete Haley, I see you, because I will consistently go in and clean up anything. And if I don't know what it is, I'm the person that deletes it. Catherine knows that our demo database, they'll say, where did all our workflows go? I'm like, those didn't look like they were done. I deleted them.
So I had fun with this. I put do not delete. I use this all the time. Do not mess this up for me. And then actually put the description. So exactly, use it to your benefit. Now, again, this one's that status change. So the status change actually is towards the bottom here. And once we have that, again, we can't create that automation. It still gives us that little no. That's because we haven't picked that reaction. So we'll come back up to this, do this action this time. We're going to link that active workflow. I'm going to keep it the more simple route, the important information list. And again, I do have that option. So this is what Haley's saying, where step 2, you do have that button.
Don't
hard
click
pause,
it.
like a hard pause here, because this could cause basically anytime I change any status. So even if I change someone from current client to former client or inactive, they're now getting important information, which we don't need that at that time. So that's where the condition is going to come in. So we'll say new condition, status is equal to active client and active client only. If you did have a situation where it's one of those active client or something else, that's where if any is. That doesn't make sense for us here. We only want this when they're actually becoming a client. So I like to run through it like a sentence really fast. I like my onboarding prospect client to work when I have a status change, link that important information when they've been changed to an active client. So it seems perfect. I'll go ahead and now create that automation. So anytime I do that, it'll actually link that contact information. Now, there is actually another option in terms of automation. If we're not doing just maybe the status change, maybe we are doing that onboarding meeting, you can have an activity trigger workflow. So second option here is an onboarding activity getting added. So same as last time though, automation name, try to keep it consistent. If it deals with something specifically, put that in the name. But unlike the last one, this trigger event is the activity added. Now I do want to stress added as the word, because every now and then we'll forget to do something correctly and then we'll change it thinking the update will trigger the automation. It will not. It's not an activity change. It's not an activity getting cloned. It's not an activity getting updated. It's activity added only. Now, once I've added that activity though, same kind of process. I want it to link a specific workflow in the CRM. So linking that workflow, this time I did the onboarding workflow, the more complicated one, the one that had multi-steps. So same kind of concept, at least, do this action. This time we made it even more specific. So every other time we've done this previously, it's always just been really one condition. I wanted this to be of the extreme. I only want this actual workflow to trigger if we set it as an appointment and if we set that category as onboarding meeting. If I don't pick one of those, this automation will not work. So we'll come back in. We'll build that one here really quick. And I know we're coming up on time, so we'll end it up actually quite perfectly here. So we'll have onboarding meeting.
So we did have a question come in while you're doing that, Catherine.
Yeah, go for it.
Now the question was, can I set off 2 actions from one automation? And currently, no. Currently, the automations only have 1 trigger event and 1 action. However, if you need the same trigger event to set off 2 workflows, so maybe you have 2 workflows, one that goes to client services and one that goes to the advisor, and when a client is changed from prospect to client, then you can set up 2 automations and just name them appropriately. And they'd be set up really the same. The only difference between the 2 would be the different workflows that they are linking. That is a great option if you find that combining your workflows in what we've just recommended actually creates unintentional bottlenecks in the process. So one maybe call out on the workflow that we created is if client services isn't on the ball with entering in all of that information, then we might not get to confirm the meeting on time and send the Zoom link. If we don't send the Zoom link on time, well, how would the client attend the meeting, right? So we may want to separate those into multiple processes. And onboarding, that's why onboarding is such a hot topic on all Redtail trainings. I think this process really has the potential to have the greatest number of automations and workflows working together. You may have an automation like we created at first. If the status is changed from prospect to client, it links their important information workflow. Then we have to have a different workflow that deals with the meeting, which is triggered based on the activity being added. And then my personal favorite is one that emails everyone in the office that a prospect was changed to a client. So you can also set up a very simple automation that says email user or email team, and then everybody gets an email that lets you know you brought on another client.
Perfect. So actually, while you were talking there, I did the whole automation. So it's a perfect example of how much more efficient, I guess I should say, on if you've built workflows, you know they're going to be time consuming. Automations are the polar opposite. As long as you know what you're trying to really accomplish, it's just a matter of plugging in the data and clicking it in. So again, we've got onboarding meeting with an activity added, trigger that RTU Online onboarding workflow option. I made that a mouthful there, specifically when it's an appointment and an onboarding meeting. And I'm going to go ahead and create that automation. Now, before I actually show those 2, there's one thing that can be very useful, especially with that last one we just built, and that is actually activity templates. So we stressed it yesterday. I'm going to stress it again. If you are going to use a condition with types and categories, activity templates will help make sure that those are actually chosen. Again, I said it earlier, it's not going to be if you change it. So if I didn't set that appointment, I set it as maybe like a task and I realized after the fact, it's not going to trigger that workflow. I have to do it right out of the gate. So to make it easier on us, so that way we're not sitting there going, I think I picked everything right. We just know for a fact it will. So
we're digging up our style guide.
Exactly. So with an activity template, the whole concept here is that if you pick a template, you'll make it here, and I'll show you ours in a second. It'll pre-fill as much as physically possible for you. So your subject, that typing category that we really need, even the attendees, the importance and priority. So it really does make it so that way I don't have to worry about the automation working. I just have to worry about picking that template and I'm done. So let's go show that really fast, where you can actually build that. I won't build it because they're actually pretty straightforward here. It's very similar to an activity, but it's going to be back under manage templates, activity templates, and then it's going to be simply adding up here. So let's actually really quickly show that here. Now we're running out of time here. Let me scooch my Zoom out of the way for a second. Come on up back to Tim. Oh, there we go. Come to Tim. Now I'm going to do that whole onboarding meeting getting added. So I'm going to come up to my quick add here. I'm going to come over to activities. I'm going to pick my template of onboarding meeting, which went ahead, filled my subject, my type, my category. All I'm changing, date and time. So he's going to actually come next Wednesday. He's going to come in the afternoon at 1:30. We'll go a little bit longer just to be safe. It is for Tucker. So no, all I'm going to do, create the activity, Give it a second for it to process. And then right over here, we actually will see 2 active workflows. So it looks like we have another automation, but there is that RTU online onboarding workflow. And because my workflow had those dates, that meeting date of March 3rd, target date up here filled in, and the rest of this workflow filled in with the appropriate dates around it. So very easy there process. Pick the template, workflow triggers in the background. That's that automation. Now that other one, the status changed, and then we will wrap it up and we're all good here. I'm going to go back to Heidi, if I can find her. There she is. And I'm going to make her an actual active client this time. So she also agreed. I'm going to come over to edit. I know it doesn't have all this data. Thank goodness I have the workflow to tell me to do so. But I'm going to switch this to active client, update the contact details, and right up here at the top, here's that actual important information list. So again, you have kind of the 2 options when it comes to onboarding. If you're gearing it towards an onboarding meeting, the activity added automation to workflow will be efficient. If it's more of just a status change to make sure we have everything, a status change automation works as well. All right. I think we talked their ear off enough, Haley. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree.
All right. So let's go ahead, give you guys a couple minutes as break. Use this time to get up and stretch, grab some water, run to the restroom, whatever you need to do. But we'll also bring back both Curtis and Austin at this time. You guys there?
I'm here, and I actually want to embarrass Haley for a quick little bit.
No.
Good. I actually need to go because I don't know what's
No,
coming.
it's really fast. So
Hi, Haley.
Haley, since there's so many people on this webinar right now, I just really want to embarrass Haley that Haley just now finished her very last training presentation with us, and we are sad to see her go. So if all of you could jump into chat and just tell Haley how great she is, we would absolutely love that. She is not leaving Redtail, don't worry. She is just leaving the training team and going on to other things to help us. So please just tell her how amazing she is. Haley, thank you. These past few years with you have been annoying at times, but absolutely love working with you. So
I have some allergies.
I know. I'm like, why would you make us cry? The pollen in here. My God.
No, I know. I'm getting sad about this. I don't like that.
I messaged her. Was it yesterday? I messaged you, Haley. I go, I just realized I'm doing the last presentation you will ever do as a trainer together. I'm like, I feel so much better now. I can't wait. I'm like, oh my God.
Right. I'm surprised so many people are saying good things about you, honestly.
Surprised so many people are spelling my name right.
Curtis, I think that's just a further proof that you live in your own little Curtis world. I concur. And also, Curtis, you were kind enough to bring up that we are at a 1-year anniversary from when we did our last RTU Live.
Our last RTU Live was a year ago in Phoenix today. Like, it's been that long since we've been with people.
Yeah, it's been incredible. Haley was obviously a part of that. She's going to do incredible things in her new position. I'm really excited for her. Not to cut that short, because we could just do that for the rest of the RTU, and I think people would be into it. Maybe not everybody, but I know a couple people would be into it. There was a recurring question, Catherine, that popped up that I flagged for a live answer. Is you mentioned something that was a mini step into a workflow. And I want to know, your look makes it seem like you might not have remembered what you said, but I wanted to see if you could elaborate on that.
Mini step into a workflow.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing that I'd say is the mini step is using the activities, but we didn't really cover that. The one thing I would say is that the first workflow we did is that mini step. It's a little teeny tiny thing that gets added in to help be that second brain for us to make sure we're not forgetting anything. So there shouldn't be any extra little steps before adding a workflow besides building it. I mean, that's a huge step. But as far as like mini steps, there really isn't anything before actually triggering that workflow. I'm like, what did I say? Who knows? Did that help whoever had that question? I'm trying to think.
Well, as always, worst case scenario, what we do here on RTU Online is really more of a general approach. It's really more of a best practice. This is one of the best ways to do these certain things. but there are always different ways, and we always recommend reaching out to our support team for those little, nitty gritty questions, and also reaching out to us, to the training team, to schedule one-on-ones to talk about your specific situations. So, yeah.
Honestly, I'm thinking now, since I scheduled the Thursday webinars, once a month I'm going to schedule, let's have a talk with our project owner, Haley. And we're just going to force her to be part of training presentations.
Down.
Yeah. We'll make it part of the new Ask a Trainer /Dev webinar. We're not going to let you go that easy.
You definitely set off my allergies. I'm glad everybody else talked and switched to a question really quick, because it's not great to cry in front of hundreds of people.
Even though I'm sitting here going,
you haven't cried
what
in
did
front
I
of a group
say?
of people, have you lived?
I mean, I think it could have been worse. Imagine if we actually were at a live RTU right now.
Oh my goodness.
There would have been no way. He would have had to just run out of the room.
Curtis would have died.
I remember Haley's first presentation at RTU.
Curtis has always been a great.
She took my presentation away from me so she could present the first time.
Wait, you've always been a great supporter though, because I remember I was nervous, and from the back, Curtis is posting pictures on Twitter of me presenting. It's Haley's first presentation.
Haley and I have always had a very much of a brother-sister relationship where we're constantly fighting, but we support each other really well. So it's been
fun fact, Curtis took my senior photo.
I did. I used to be a photographer at one point in another life. Weird. It just things keep crossing.
The question got missed in here. I gotta be honest, so I apologize. I don't know who asked it, but someone did ask, are you still sitting next to each other then when you guys go back to the office?
Well, we were talking about this earlier, right? Haley was like saying she's not going to move her desk. And I was like, I'm going to complain to our manager that there's someone from a different department here.
As your manager, your complaint is pre-noted. And that's it.
And goes into the shred pile is what I just heard there.
It goes into my special complaint folder.
Is there very much like in The Office where Toby had a list of like Dwight's complaints that were just like set aside? I feel like the same thing is happening here. So Curtis is complaining about something again.
I think I'll probably sit next to Curtis as long as Curtis does not succeed in having me forcibly moved.
I refuse to go within like 6 feet of people at any time, and our desks are too close for that. So I'll come in like one of those bubbles. Headphones, everything.
And then honestly, no, I'm taking pictures of him at the desk.
I really only want Haley to stay sitting next to me, not because she's but she is, but mainly because I'd rather have Malcolm, her dog, hanging out with me. So it's really more about Malcolm than Haley.
It always is. It's okay.
But you haven't formed that bond with Leo because he was so little when we first left. So now you have to form that bond.
No, Leo is judgy against me. It took me a long time to get Malcolm to actually like me. And I had to earn Malcolm's love. And now he's like, okay, cool. I like you.
Well, anyone with a dog, I mean, hopefully most people with dogs understand that the beard is a little, the dogs don't understand it. Yeah, I had a question. Yeah, Malcolm's sitting on my desk. I'll have him come over here.
There's a dog on Haley's desk at all times.
Right here. There you go. So yeah, this is Malcolm. He was a little nervous about the beard at first, but he's good now.
He did not trust me.
I mean, Malcolm loved me from the first time he met me. So.
That's not okay.
You don't have a beard.
Like full on just came up and was like, hey, like, what up?
I am not okay with that.
Let's see. I'm like, is there anything we missed in the middle of there? I did see Adriana. We did answer that question in the last break. So thank you for giving that to us, by the way. So I did see that somewhere. Yep, there it is.
I wasn't sure if she asked that to us or if she asked that to the crowd. I literally am always learning about a new thing. Like, there are many things that I am informed by my team that are like possible to do.
So just as a quick recap, so both, I believe Austin and I said integrations since they've changed so much. Curtis jokingly said client review, but I don't know 100% if that was a joke. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. But he actually said just working with the offices, the different processes that every office comes across is always something that's new. And then Haley had admitted with accounts, but that's fair enough. Those are beasts. I'm just gonna admit that.
Well, I think it's time to educate Curtis on client reviews and how to best do them in Redtail. So that serves as a good segue into our last section. Bye, Haley. Bye, Catherine. We'll see you guys at the end. And Curtis, let's go ahead and move forward now with our last topic of the day, which is client management. Now, we're going to specifically really dive into that annual review process. And that's typically because it's pretty much universal for every Redtail user to have some kind of review process where they're meeting with the client, whether that's on an annual, semi-annual, quarterly basis, just some kind of check-in with the client on a recurring basis. And so that's what we're going to learn how to do inside Redtail CRM Better today. Okay, so let's jump to it first with just setting a little bit of an expectation. And it's kind of similar to what we talked about this morning with prospecting, is that Redtail is like a giant toolbox, right? And it has chock full of things that we can use to help us with a certain process. Now, it's not going to do the process for us, but what Redtail can do is help us to track and report on who needs to be scheduled for a review, who has a review scheduled, and who has completed the review. And I'm going to preference today's presentation with there isn't a perfect way to schedule client reviews. And you're actually going to see Curtis and I disagree on some things as well as we go through on how we would go about scheduling the client review process. But we wanted to show you the most intended way that Redtail intends for you to do client reviews based off of how the system has been coded to work.
Yeah, definitely. Like we've been saying throughout the whole presentation, there really is different ways you can do any single process. Like we are always going to be presenting what is the intended way of, for the system to be used. But we also, like I said, like me and Austin are going to go back and forth a little bit and say like, hey, I find it this way better. He finds it that way better. Keep in mind, we are only going to be giving like suggestions, but there is no one actual 100% complete right answer. Like, I don't know how many more adjectives or I can give for that, but there is no one correct answer. It's always what works best for you. If you try and do a process that works for another office, it might not be the way to go. You want to see what is the most important to you and go towards that.
Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to client reviews, there's really two terms that you should know. And they're very similar, but they are different in some ways. So Curtis, can you tell us what reminders are?
Reminders, I mean, you'll see reminders. There's birthday reminders. We have the client review reminders, account reminders. There's all these different types of reminders in the system. But one thing about reminders is there is no actual history to them. Reminders are always designed to be proactive. Okay, I'm always looking ahead at what's possibly or what is actually coming up. So if I need to send out birthday cards for March, I need to look at the March birthdays. The same concept goes for client reviews. If I need to schedule a client review, I want to look at the reminders for what are the reminders that are supposed to be scheduled in March. If you are, and we're going to be talking about setting up specifically a client review reminder, if you are waiting till the day that the reminder says, you're already behind. So again, I always like to really push, they should be proactive. There's no completing a reminder, it rolls over, so as soon as like a birthday, as soon as the birthday passes, the next reminder is the next year. Same thing for client reviews. Once that day hits and passes, it's going to push to the next one. So that's why it's important to be proactive with these. Actually, I'm going to let Austin get into activities there. There are no email notifications that are going to be sent out saying, hey, this reminder is upcoming. But we're going to show you ways where you can make sure you're not going to let them fall through the cracks.
Absolutely. And then on the other side of it, we have what are called activities, and these can hold the history. They can be completed. We can have notes added to them. They can even have email notifications. And that's where we basically take the reminder and we make it into a concrete, okay, this is the review. This is when it's happening. So I have a little bit of analogy to illustrate this. So with reminders, I want you to think of like hanging up a picture frame, right? The first thing we got to do is we got to do a little preemptive work, and we're going to proactively go and get our level out, and we're going to picture on the wall here, and we're going to mark off where would we like to hang this picture, right? And then once we actually have decided, okay, we're getting closer now, it's time to hang the picture, what we're going to do is we're going to get our hammer and our nail out. And we're actually going to hammer that nail into the wall so that way we can hang the picture onto it. And the same thing with client reviews. We're going to set a reminder for where we think we'd like to hang that client review. And then once it gets closer and we're ready to actually do it, we're going to put that nail in the wall and we're going to nail it into place. So reminders versus activities. So I have a chat question for you guys. If you guys are on the Zoom meeting, which one is most important for client reviews? Is it reminders or is it activities? Which one do you use? Do you use reminders or do you activities or do you use both? Let's see what we say in the chat here. All right.
There we go. And keep in mind, there is no wrong answer. You know, it is what works best for you, but we're going to show you maybe your answer that you're answering now is going to change after this presentation, after seeing some things. So again, keep an open mind, but tell us what is more important to you with this aspect.
Yeah, seeing a lot of activities, seeing a lot of reminders, and seeing a lot of both. And I would probably say that it is both. I think when client reviews are done best, or the way that they're intended to be done in Redtail, you use both reminders and the activities. And so let's explore how we can use both of those. All right, so first steps first is the reminder comes first, and we need to set the reminders for our clients within Redtail CRM. How do we do that? We set them under the Know Your Client section. So let's go to the CRM now and let's set some reminders. So I'm going to go ahead and just fly over here, and I can go ahead and open my contact. So we've been working with Tim Taylor in the onboarding process, and so now it's time to get him scheduled for his client reviews. And oops, there's my mouse. Okay. We can go to our recently viewed contacts here, and let's go ahead and open up Tim Taylor. All right, so here's Tim. And if I want to set a reminder for Tim, what I'm going to do is go ahead and go to the Know Your Client section tab here on the left-hand side of the contact record. And I'm going to add the client review reminder. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this.
Now,
and it's
actually, I'm going to jump in real fast. Yeah. Like, one thing I do like about the fact that it is on the individual contact basis. We get a lot of times people saying, hey, can I set it up in bulk? One of the main reasons why you would want to set up one by one is you have the option to, hey, this person's coming in every year. This person's coming in every 6 months. This person's every 3 months. And then you can be very specific and set them up on their own recurring basis. And again, this is strictly for the reminders. You know, so it's like, how often does this person need to be coming in? It can all be set from here.
Yeah. So the first thing we're going to do is put in the first review date. Now, if you remember that date and you want to put in the very first review that you had with this person, you're more than welcome to use that as your starting point. But I like to just use the most recent. So when was the last time that I talked to this person, or maybe when did I onboard them as a client? Put that in as the first review date, because that's just going to basically serve as the starting point for how we're going to set the recurrence for the reminder. So I'm just going to set it for today, February 24th, 2021. And let's go ahead and set the recurrence pattern. So down here, if I click this option, Redtail has some predetermined ones that I can go ahead and use right off the bat. And this is just to save me a little bit of time when it comes to setting those reminders. So for example, if Tim and I meet once a year, annually on February 24th, I can go ahead and set the recurrence and I'm done.
Now, actually, with that annually on the 24th, a lot of times I get like, hey, like the 24th might not be a work like a weekday. It might not be Monday through Friday. And honestly, with a reminder, it doesn't matter. If it falls on a Saturday or Sunday, if you're being proactive about it, it doesn't matter if the 24th is going to be a Saturday or Sunday, because you'll still be able to look forward and then schedule them closer to that date when you're actually during business hours. So honestly, this is probably the easiest setup, is just choose annually. If it's once a year, choose the annual option.
Mm-hmm. Now, we understand that not everybody's going to meet on an annual basis. Sometimes for our higher net worth clients, we got to meet with them on maybe like a quarterly or a semi-annual basis. And so for that, we have the ability to customize the recurrence pattern. Okay. And so here we can choose the frequency in which we want to recur. And then of course we could choose between either days, weeks, months, or years. So for example, if I wanted to meet with Tim every 6 months, I can go ahead and change this to 6 months. And so it's going to ask me, do I want to meet monthly on the 24th day or the 4th Wednesday of the month? Now, what if you're thinking like, oh, actually, I want to meet on Tuesdays. I don't want to meet on the 4th Wednesday. I want to meet on Tuesdays. Well, if we just take our months here and we can adapt these into weeks, so there's 26 weeks in a year, now I can choose to have my review due on a Tuesday. So I can use a combination of weeks and months to find what I need to set the recurrence for.
Now, what one suggestion I would make that is because the 24th, the first review date is a Wednesday, that you wouldn't normally want to choose Tuesday here. You would want, because it's a Wednesday, it's just how the computer system looks. If today's a Wednesday and you want to repeat every Tuesday, it doesn't necessarily, the repeating pattern doesn't make sense. That's why it's defaulted here. So in that case, if you did want it to be Tuesday, I would say change the first review as well to the 23rd, to yesterday, and then choose Tuesday.
All right, cool. So now we got our review set up for Tim. We can go ahead and update the client review reminders. And again, we're going to repeat this process for our clients. And so Curtis, you have a pro tip for us on how we can make this even easier.
Oh, definitely. So if you have an onboarding process, so if like you actually, hey, every time we onboard a client, we're going to fill out all this information. And once they become a client, set the meeting, make that as part of your actual process. Okay. So have an actual workflow task or something that says, set up the client review reminder. So that way, as you're onboarding clients, you're already incorporating this process as part of it. You don't have to remember to do it later.
Yeah. I'm reminded of the important information list workflow that Catherine just showed us how to make. And this could be a wonderful topic that we can go ahead and add to that. So that way we know that when we have an active client, they're going to have a reminder set.
Definitely.
All right. And so next up, we're going to take those reminders and we're going to search for them within the database. So let's go ahead and do that now. To search for things in Redtail CRM, I'm going to use the advanced search tool. So that's found under the contacts. I'm sorry, I got a disappearing mouse again. There we go. Contacts. Then we're going to choose the advanced search tool. And we can go ahead and use this search here to search for client review reminders. So it's going to be know your client, next review month, equal to, and then the month that we want to go ahead and set the review reminders for, or to search for.
This is that part about being proactive. All right, so this is essentially after you've set up all of your clients with that review reminder. Now I need to see who needs to come in March. So this is really, I'm looking ahead. It's February. Who do I need to schedule for March? This is why we're running the search.
Yeah. So we can go ahead and run this search as is. Again, as we've learned with the advanced search, so we can also add other criteria. So if you wanted to, example, see, I get a business contact here. Maybe we just want to narrow that down just to our active clients. I can go ahead and add in second criteria as I see fit to make sure that I'm just getting the contacts that I need. So here I'm going to add contact status equal to active client. And so that way, just in case there was another contact that had a review reminder set accidentally, they're not going to show up on this list. We're just going to focus on our 9 active clients.
Definitely. And you can actually use a combination in this sense of creating a task reminder as well as even a quick list. So we talked a little bit about quick list, but once you save it, it's going to save. Right now it's looking for March, but every time you run the quick list, you can change that drop down for the month and then create a repeating activity. This is where you can create a task. So it's not a repeating activity for every client. This is just one repeating activity, an internal task to say, run this specific quick list for the following month. And so that way you get that list updating every month for who the reminders are. Because again, this search is basing off of the reminder itself.
So Curtis, what you're saying is I don't have to have a separate quick list for each month of the year. I can just have one quick list that I can update.
Exactly. Like you can create 12 different quick lists, but that's going to create just a longer list of quick lists. But if you just call it client reviews, however you want, and then when you go to the quick list, and actually Austin's going to show us that. So go ahead and run the quick list. Perfect. So once we click it, it runs. Here's those people for March. Now it's time to pull April. So we're just going to choose the drop down and then hit run. Really, all this is doing is saving on the time for choosing all of those drop downs. That's what the quick list does. It's saving those parameters so you can make slight adjustments to them if you need to actually save a lot of time.
Now, another pro tip that Curtis gave was that we want to set the reminder. So I just wanted to show everybody how to do that. I'm going to go to my calendar here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a reminder on the 15th of the month to run the client review reminder report for the next month. So for example, here, if I go to March 15th, I'm going to go ahead and create a recurring reminder for myself to run search for next month's reviews. Okay, and I'm going to put it as an all-day task on my calendar to make sure that I'm reminded that I'm being proactive in scheduling my client reviews for the following month. And of course, I can create and edit this and make it into a recurring pattern here. So if I want to repeat it monthly on the third Monday of the month, I'll go ahead and set the recurrence and we'll go ahead and save it. So that way, every third Monday, I'm going to be reminded to do this quick list and prepare for the next round of client reviews.
Exactly. And that saves you on, sometimes you forget to be proactive. It happens. This is really just the fallback of, I have a task, I know I need to run it. And honestly, if you get to it before the third Monday, complete it, but it's an actual action item. And like even what Haley was saying earlier, if it's not in Redtail, it didn't happen. If you've joined any of our webinars in the past, like 4 or 5, 6 years, you've probably heard that saying, and that's what it is. If I didn't have a task to remember to run this search, did it actually happen? I don't know, but this is a great way to make sure you don't forget.
All right, so we have a reminder set. And so now let's go ahead and pretend that it is Monday, March 15th, or excuse me, let's go back. Let's go backwards in time. We're going to go to the 15th of February, okay? So we got in our DeLorean and now we're back in time and we're going to prepare for those March reviews. So again, I don't need to do my advanced search again. Instead, what I can do is visit my quick list here, or a shorter way is actually just to go to this little guy right here, choose quick lists and go ahead and pull up that list of contacts that I need to get scheduled. Now, Curtis, this is actually where you and I kind of diverge in how we go about scheduling our client reviews. So I'm going to show you my method using tag groups. And then Curtis, I'm going to have you, then we're going to come back and I'm going to have you walk us through how you do it using activities.
Definitely.
So my method is very similar to this morning, how we talked about the tag group, and we're going to add these contacts to a group and we're going to schedule them from that group. So what I'll do is select them here, choose contact options, bulk actions, and I'm going to add to tag group. And so I'm going to give that title, I'm going to give that group a title. So I'm going to call this March 2021 Client Reviews to be scheduled. Okay. And I want that on a list because I'm going to be able to mark off who I did and did not schedule during that time period. So I'll add these to a tag group. And then when I have some time available on my calendar, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up that tag group and I am going to reach out to those contacts to schedule their review for March. So here we go. Here's my 9 contacts that I need to go ahead and get scheduled. As Haley taught us earlier, we can hover over the name to get the phone number or the email address. So if I prefer to call the clients, I could go ahead and hover over their email and give them a call. We also learned that we can use the action icon here to go ahead and send them an email, maybe include a link to maybe my scheduling software as well, so they can go ahead and pick the time for themselves. But here is where we're going to go ahead and reach out to the client and we're going to book the meeting. So let's say, for example, we'll start with Elaine here, and I called Elaine and she's willing to come in on March 5th. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the action icon here. I'm going to choose activity to book that appointment for March 5th. So here we go, Friday, March 5th. She said that about 10 a.m. was going to be the best time for her. So let's book it for 10 a.m. We're going to set our appointment and we're going to set it for client reviews. Of course, as we learned in our last session, we could also use a template to speed up this process as well. So if we have a client review activity template like we do here, we can go ahead and speed up that process by just applying the template and creating the activity. Once I have the activity completed, Elaine is now booked for her appointment. And so what I can do now is I can take her off of this group of client reviews that need to be scheduled. So I'm going to hold down the command button here on my keyboard, and that's going to open up Elaine in a new tab. We're going to remove her from the tag group here because she no longer needs to be scheduled. I'll come on back to my tag group here and just go ahead and give it a refresh. And that's going to go ahead and take Elaine off of this list. And we're going to go ahead and move on to the next contacts. So now, Curtis, you have a different way of going about doing this. And it's not using a tag group, but activities. So can you take me through how you would do this?
Yeah, definitely. So what we're going to do is go back to the original search we ran. So Austin, if you don't mind just going to that quick list. So where we're running for any contact who's an active client who has a review scheduled for March. So in here, it brings them up. We have all 9. What I normally like to do is I need to know whether or not did it get done, did it not. Even though, yeah, tag groups can be used for that situation. Remove them means that we've actually scheduled the review and you have the activity on their calendar. But in this case, I'm going to select all 9. So go and select all 9 for me. Then on the right-hand side, contact options again, and then bulk actions. And I'm just going to choose add activity, the very top thing. When you add an activity to multiple people, it creates an individual activity attached to each of those contacts. And the subject line here, I'm just going to call the schedule review or schedule client review, however you want to put this, but this is an action item. In this case, I'm going to leave it as a task. And then I'm going to actually change. We can do the category to maybe just keep it customer service, however you want. But this is an actual action item that we're going to be doing. Now from here, the start date. You can just keep it for today, or you can say, hey, maybe I'm going to start these on Friday. So actually just go ahead and let's choose Friday. It's an all-day event because it's a task. It doesn't mean I'm not calling them at 10 o'clock. I'm just calling them on that day. So again, we ran the quick list. We selected to add an activity through the bulk actions. And then we are actually adding an activity. This is creating 9 separate activities. Once you create that, perfect. Now at this point, to know who needs to be scheduled, I don't need to go to the tag group. If I go to the calendar, so on the left-hand side, we'll click calendar. And we can go to Friday. And you'll see there's all of those activities that I need to accomplish on Friday. You can even say, hey, I need to space these out. And you can drag and drop. I'm going to move some to Thursday. Maybe I'm going to move some to next week. But I can easily space them out. And then again, this is just an action to reach out and schedule the activity with them. The reminder told us when they needed to be there. Then the activity is telling us to actually do something.
Yeah. So just spreading them out. And then once you schedule the review, Curtis, what do you do next?
Once you schedule the same thing, you're going to create an activity. If you have like how they were showing where you can create an activity in the earlier episode, in the earlier presentation, and that can through an automation trigger a workflow, you can just create another activity with those specific conditions. Or honestly, you can use the activity that already exists and just update it as their client review. You can change that. Again, it's all dependent on what works best for you. I can come in here and say, this is now their actual client review meeting. Every time I reach out to them, every time I do something with them, I can make notes. I can put information in the description, but it already exists. It's ready for me to use.
All right. So we're just going to adjust the item that we made to schedule to put in the start time and then also the start date. We'll update this to maybe an appointment, and we can go ahead and save the activity. So that way we can meet with Elaine at her scheduled time. And then of course, then we move on to the next one. So 2 different ways to do it. Curtis has an opinion. I have an opinion, right? There's no perfect way, but what we do agree upon is that we should be setting reminders using that quick list or that advanced search to find out who's due, and then take it from there to schedule those reviews.
It really, like Austin's saying, it really comes down to, it's important to be proactive about these. You know, it's really, if you're not looking ahead to when you need to schedule things, there's a chance you're going to fall behind. And anybody who might be on, hey, maybe they're coming in every 3 months, that's a little harder. If they're coming in every year, it's not a difficult thing to be off by a month, you know, but the more that they repeat throughout the year, the more proactive you want to be.
Yeah. All right, so let's move to after the review now. So we've got the review scheduled. Let's just assume right now that the person comes in on the time that they were scheduled to come in on. Now we're going to go ahead and complete that activity. So let's go back to Redtail here. We're going to go up to Friday the 5th, and we have our client reviews here scheduled for Elaine. And so what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and open it up here. We're going to First, we're going to put in our notes. So Curtis, should I put it in the description here, or should I put it over here in the notes section?
See, now this is a common thing. We get a lot of people who want to make notes in the description, and I can't necessarily say that's wrong, but it's not the intended way that Redtail is designed. Again, that box for the description should be, what are we going to cover? What's the agenda for the meeting that's happening? What do we need to talk about? This is really what needs to take place during the meeting. Whereas the linked notes on the right-hand side is what happened. So if this was an activity, if even before the review about reaching out to call and schedule, you can add a linked note saying, hey, I called and left a message. And it actually gives a time and date stamp and who reached out. And that information is historical now. You can report on it. You can even categorize it if you need to. But in this case, you can fill out the final meeting notes as a linked note. It makes it as its own standalone note, as well as easy access through the activity to see where that came from. Why is this note existing? It's because it was linked to this actual event that happened in the system.
Yeah, I want to just repeat that because it's important that when we enter in a linked note, it's going to timestamp and date it the moment that we're entering it in. If we enter in our notes here in the description, well, yes, they'll save to the contact record. It's not going to timestamp it until the activity has actually been put into completed status.
One thing I can say is, again, we're not going to say don't put anything in the description about notes. I see a lot of people will type in there, write their initials, write the date they make it. Those last two things will happen automatically in linked notes for you. The time and date stamp is important at that point. But also, let's say, for instance, that Austin and I are both on this activity. We're both users who are on this activity, and we both have it open. Mm-hmm. Because it's a web-based system, we're able to both be in it at the same time. If Austin were to make notes in the description, and then I were to make notes in the description, and then he saved his on his side, it would update that activity. But then if I saved mine after, it's going to overwrite what he did. But if we make our notes in the linked notes section, that will not happen. Linked notes, if he saves it, are going to go in. And even if I don't see them yet, if I save my notes, it will not affect each other. The description can be overwritten if multiple people are in the same activity. So I do like to point that out, that it's much better and safer to not lose information if you're using the linked notes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now that we have finished out the appointment, we've completed the follow-up items, what we're going to do is we're going to choose the save and complete option here. And that's going to put a completed activity for Elaine that the scheduled client review has been completed. Which brings us to the last part of the client review process, which is patching up those cracks, right? Making sure that we are not allowing anybody to fall through, not getting scheduled for their client review, whether we use the activity or the tag group method, and also making sure that we enter in those client review notes. So let me show you how to do that. Inside Redtail here, we're going to go to the reports tab here on the left-hand side. And we're going to visit that report that we visited earlier this morning, and that is our no contact report here under contact reports. If you can't tell, it's one of my favorites in all of Redtail.
It's mine too. Like this is every time I'm on a training with somebody and they say, hey, what's something I need to know about Redtail that I don't know? This is my go-to. Hey, check out the no contact report because it's going to show you who possibly fell through the cracks. And also, it's the only report where the main goal is to have nothing show up. If you run this report and nobody shows up, you are doing everything you should. This is really just saying, who did we miss?
Mm-hmm. So so that's the question. Who did we miss? Did we miss anybody going through our reminder process that we've developed? Maybe they didn't have a reminder set, or here's the most common, I'll tell you, is the advisor did put the notes in to finish out the client review. And that's super valuable to have with this report. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and filter for our, report here. I'm going to look for the last year because that's what I have agreed with my clients is that we're going to meet at least once a year. I'm going to filter this for my active clients, and I'm going to look for those who do not have a note completed with the category of client review notes. Now, if they have another note added for a different, category or a different topic, that's fine. We're looking specifically for the ones for client review notes because that's what's going to indicate that they had their client review completed. Because if it's not Redtail, it didn't happen. And then, of course, as Haley taught us, we can also narrow this down just to the head of households. And let's go ahead and apply the filters. All right, so Redtail's processing. It's going to look through all of those contact records. It's identifying which of those do not have client review notes, and it's going to tell us who do we need to go ahead and put into our process.
And again, like this is the goal here is to have nobody show up. Ours is taking a little longer, mainly because this is a training database. We only really work with like, there's 300 contacts and we really only work with like 4 or 5 of them on a regular basis. But essentially this is going to pop up and it's going to be like, here's the people, here they are. We have 155 people who have not had a client review note in over a year. And it even tells us right here, never, none of these people have ever had a client review note, but they're active clients. So again, if you're constantly making notes and using that linked note with the category, it's going to be very beneficial to use this report.
Mm-hmm.
And again, go ahead.
So how do we clean this up? Well, we're going to do that same search method here. And we're going to send them over to search. And then once they're in the search, we can either use my method of putting them into the tag group to be scheduled, or we can create the activities like Curtis taught us to reach out to them to schedule the review appointment as soon as possible, because we're already past that overdue mark of getting them in for a client review. All right, and so let's go ahead and move into another popular question.
And actually, real fast, Austin, someone did ask, like, how did we get to that no contact report?
Sure.
So again, it's a report. If you go to reports on the left-hand side, I always like to talk about when you click on reports, it's before you look for it, it's important to think about what data do I want to get back? You know, so if you ever say, I want to see a list of contacts, you're going to go to the contact reports. If you want to see a list of activities, you go to the activity reports, same thing. So we want to see a list of contacts. So we're going to go to the contact reports. And then we go down to the very last item, says no contact. And as a suggestion, click on that star on the right-hand side. This is going to personally mark it as one of your favorite reports. Actually, I want everybody to do that now. Go into your system, go to reports, go find the no contact report and mark it as a favorite, because if it's not your favorite, it should be. It's my opinion.
All right, great. So we have our no contact report favorited here. The next topic that I wanted to cover is a common question that we get with client reviews, and that's what happens if they cancel or they reschedule? How do I notate that inside Redtail CRM? How do I manage that? And so let's go ahead and do an example here. We're going to go to a calendar here, and I still have that client review here marked for Elaine for March 5th. Now, let's just say hypothetically, though, Elaine called in and she says, you know, I got something going on in my kid's school. I can't make it in on that day. Can we reschedule? What I can do at this point here is I can go ahead and open up the activity. And I'm, of course, going to put in the link notes as to why I'm moving this. So I'm going to add a note here to the activity, and I'm going to indicate what's going on here. So we'll go ahead and put in Elaine needs to reschedule to March 17th. She has child care conflicts. Okay. So we'll go ahead and put that in as a note. So that way we know why that is there. I can go ahead and categorize it and add that as a note. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come on down here to actions, and I'm going to choose the save and clone. The reason why is because I want to take one of these activities and I want to move it to the 17th, but I still want it to show that we did have something scheduled for her on March 5th. So let's hit this save and clone. And what Redtail is going to do is it's going to basically duplicate our activity here. Again, the note's still here. And so what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and push this forward. We decided on March 17th at 11 a.m. I'm going to go ahead and book that onto the calendar. Now what Redtail is going to do is it's going to take me back to the original client review here. And what I like to do is I like to mark it off with a category that indicates why this is on the calendar. So it's no longer a client review that's going to be happening. Instead, what we can do is we can mark it off as a rescheduled. So let's see, we have our rescheduled here.
It's up. There we go.
There we go. Thank you. So we have our category of rescheduled. And now that this item here is complete, we can go ahead and save and complete it. And Redtail is going to mark it off as a completed item on our calendar. So that way someone else can be booked to that spot if needed. So that's how I would handle the cancellations.
Yeah, keep in mind, because we have that automation going, when you do save and clone, it is creating another activity with a type and a category, and it just restarted our workflow. So we actually have two workflows going for that. So if you do clone, keep in mind that if you have automations that are set, it will affect those as well. But even I know a lot of offices who don't do the clone. Like it's definitely fine. You don't have to keep the original activity there. You can just make a note. And actually, that's the most important thing. Make a note as to what happened, where he went over and said, Elaine needs to reschedule the 25th. There's a date and timestamp specifically there. And you can put that, hey, at least I knew that this activity was at another time. Even so, inside this activity, you still can go to the timeline and see when the activity originally was. So you have all that information. There's two ways of doing it. If you want to keep the original activity where it was, a lot of people prefer that, like Austin was saying, because I want to know if an activity was supposed to happen then and why it didn't happen. Or you can just move the original activity to the new date as long as you're making notes, but it is important that you're notating everything that's happening.
All right, well, that takes us to the end of our annual review process. What I want to do next is I want to cover another side of client management, and that is managing our clients' birthdays. Birthdays are a popular time for advisory firms to reach out to their clients to just basically recognize the holiday. And we learned earlier today about the date of birth reminder. So we can use that to toggle off whether or not we do want to celebrate the birthday, or we can leave it unattended. But this is another part that's going to play into reminders like we learned about earlier. And so I want to show you on the Today page here where we can go to be reminded about upcoming birthdays. So if we go to the reminders button here on our Today page, we can go ahead and filter for client birthdays. Now, client birthdays are going to be automatically set based off of two fields. First off, the client has to have their date of birth entered into the contact record. Second, they need to have the date of birth, the birthday reminder enabled on their contact record. Okay, and so here we have some contacts added. We actually have a couple birthdays today. We have one for Sarah and one for Allison. And so if we want to go ahead and celebrate that, we can do a couple of things. First off, we can go ahead and open up the contact record here. Oops, and actually, I'm sorry, I wanted to do that in a separate tab. So let's do that. We can either hold down the control or command button on our keyboard or right click to open in a new tab here. I'm going to open up Sarah and Allison here. Okay, so today is Sarah's birthday. And so if we want to, we can go ahead and give her a call and wish her a happy birthday. We could also use the email method as well. So if we have an email address added here, we can go ahead and send out, oops, I'm sorry, I chose regular address, not email. Let's go ahead and add in Allison's email here. So we'll say ajones @gmail.com is the primary email address. And so if I want to, I can use the the email tool inside Redtail to send out a happy birthday to Allison. So I'm going to go ahead and select my template here. And I can choose a birthday email. I'm sorry, Alex, I don't have that one. Let's just go ahead and type it out. So we'll say happy birthday. And we can go ahead and draft up that email to Allison to wish her a happy birthday. Now, one of my favorite things about this email tool here is if you're not familiar with it, you can actually have information merged in to this email based off of fields in the Redtail. So for example, if I want Allison's first name here into merging into this email, I can go ahead and use these double pound signs or double hashtags, depending on what generation you're from. And I can go ahead and merge in that information to Allison, wish her a happy birthday, and go ahead and send off that email. So another side of client management, again, is just making our clients feel recognized and appreciated on their special day.
Now, I want to give one other suggestion, and this is actually going to be similar to how we did the reviews. Like those reminders are great. Like on the main page, you can see the upcoming ones. So if you like to do it like, hey, just a few days ahead or on the day of, definitely. And every office does it differently. But I know that sometimes for birthdays, I talk to a lot of offices who like to be a little more personal. Like they like to handwrite a letter. You know, they want to do something. They handwrite the address. It just gives that personal aspect. If you go to the search page, you can do very similar thing like we did for the client review reminders of run a search for when their birthday is. So Austin, let's run a search for any contact who has a status of active client. So we'll
Okay.
do type of contact, field the status. We'll do active client for that. Then we're also going to run add another layer of if they have a birthday in a specific month. Now, the reminders page that Austin was showing you earlier only shows people with the date of birth reminder enabled. This search is going to show you any contact who has a birthday in March. So we're going to add one more layer. So if you want to say, and actually a question came is, how do I see who has their birthdays disabled or enabled? Add this third lane or this third layer, and we're going to do contact again. And then we're going to do DOB reminder and then equal to true. So this means that they have the reminder turned on. If you do false, it's going to say they have the reminder turned off. If you want to turn them on or bulk, that's a bulk action. You can disable or enable in bulk. But from here, this is showing I have 24 active clients who have the date of birth reminder turned on. And I actually want a list of them. So I'm going to select all. So we do the very top checkbox, then go over to contact options on the right, then choose reports. This is going to give us a PDF option. The very top one says birthday report. What I love about this is even though the 24 contacts were in alphabetical order, this report is going to put them in birthday order. So I actually see, okay, on March 1st, I have a few birthdays, gives me their primary address, their primary phone number. This is the easiest way. If you're handwriting birthday cards with the address, it's right there. That's the address you're going to send it to. Or if you say, hey, we don't have an address for them, but I got a phone number, I can give them a call. And you can just mark them off on this PDF if you want. And again, it's great because it's in birthday order. You don't have to do them all right now. You just have the list ready to go.
Now, Curtis, I really like this search here. Should I save it and make one for each month of the year?
You should definitely save it, but don't make it. I wouldn't suggest for each month of the year. Just call it active client birthdays. And just like the reminder quick list that we did for reviews, you can change the drop-down month. And again, even if you have you can add layers of servicing advisor on there and change those drop downs. You can really make whatever you need to based off of your context information. Who do I need to reach out to for birthdays?
Mm-hmm. So we have our active client birthdays here list. And again, if for April, what I'm going to do is just update this field here for April, go ahead and run it, and I'll have my list of birthdays ready for April. Now, there's also one other place that I want to show you that might be a little bit faster, particularly if you're having a little bit of trouble with using the advanced search tool, is we actually have a report that can report on birthdays in a similar fashion. So under the reports tab here on the left, we can go on down here to reminder reports and choose birthday reminders. And this report here is going to give us very similar to the PDF report that Curtis just showed us here. It's going to give us birthdays happening in a certain time frame. So for example, here, if I want to look at my birthdays for the next 30 days, even though today is February 26th, it's going to show me all the birthdays between February, I forgot, February was a short month. So it'd be March 24th. So if I do 30 days in advance here, I'll filter for my active clients. Then Redtail can show me all the birthdays happening in the next 30 days. So that's another way that we can report on birthdays and get our birthday lists ready for the following month.
And this one, because it's a report, only shows contacts who have the date of birth reminder enabled. Okay, so if it's disabled, they will not show up on this report either. And also keep in mind, you can do the client review reminder the same way through this report. There's another option. This just gives you a little more control over what's populating.
All right, awesome. Well, I think we actually got through our material a little bit faster than intended. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time here answering some questions, maybe live, about the client review process or birthday reminders or just client management in general. So let's go ahead and just open up the QA here, and we'll go ahead and move forward with any questions that you guys have for either Curtis and I as far as client management and what you'd like to know more about.
Now, one question I see that was in here was about what type of birthday report do you run to sync with FMG FMG to send out cards? Now, FMG is one of our marketing integrations. The marketing integrations actually sync with tag groups, which is a static list. So in that case, like how Austin was saying, you can add everybody to a tag group. You can run the birthday search, add them to a tag group at that point, and then have any of the marketing companies sync with that specific tag group.
Right. Oh, so we have a question here about what do you do? What is your suggestion for listing items for follow-up after a client review? So let's go back to Redtail here and let's go ahead and investigate what we should do after a client review. What we could do is we could use that same save and clone method that I taught earlier today about taking the client review and then cloning it to make sure that the information is continued on with the client review. So I would basically complete the client review in place, clone it, and then allow for myself to do follow-up items. And again, all my linked notes are going to be in the same spot. So to demo this, go ahead.
All right, sorry, and keep in mind everything that you want to do after a review. Like we didn't really dive into workflows in this particular section, but the same way goes for the onboarding, for prospecting. You can have workflow tasks that remind you to do what needs to happen after the meeting as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of those things can be added as what Austin's going to be showing. You can create activities to make a note, create activities to do the follow-up, all of that as workflow process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, linking the client review workflow is another option to do that as well. Just to give you an idea, here is the client review. We can go ahead and complete it. So we put in our notes here. Monica and discussed accounts and retirement plans. We'll go ahead and save that as a client review note. We're going to go ahead at this time, go ahead and save and clone it. And this is going to be for my follow-up items. So maybe we need to open up a new account and go ahead and say open new account. If I want to, I can even change the attendees here as well. So maybe I'm the advisor and I completed the client review, but I have something that I want to delegate out to my staff for them to go ahead and complete. I can go to the attendees options here and I can just deselect myself and then choose the staff member that I want to go ahead and have take care of this. So I'm going to choose Teddy here and we're going to sign this over to Teddy to go ahead and take place. And of course, deselect myself at this point. And so now it's going to add an item to Teddy to go ahead and complete this item for opening a new account for Monica. Save the activity, and that's going to be added to Teddy's calendar. And then at this point here, I'm done with what I need to do, so I can go ahead and save and complete this client review.
Now, one thing I want to add, like pushing on workflows itself. And Austin, if you don't mind, can you go to the help desk to our sample workflows?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so if you go to the question mark and then hit Redtail help desk, and you can just type in sample templates or even just like the word sample. But if you type in that, you can go in and we actually have a list of different like Redtail sample templates. The workflow templates is a pretty long list, and we essentially have different suggestions of how you can set up something. So you remember all the different suggestions we made of how you can run a client review. You want to add into your own workflow to make sure they get done before, during, and after that process. So everything like Austin was saying, like the meeting notes, any kind of follow-up, put that in here so you don't forget about it. It means, again, the workflows are making sure you're not letting anything fall through the cracks. You're not going to forget to do the follow-up because it'll be in your system.
Mm-hmm. So here's the example. We start off, we confirm the meeting, and we prep for it. Target date is day of. Follow up with those items at the end. So it's almost automatic. I don't have to type them in. I don't have to create another activity. We do the same follow-ups for each one. We have a systematic process in place.
Definitely. All right. So let's go ahead and just invite the other trainers back at this point. And we're just gonna we had a lot of questions that came in. We will be answering those. I think Ricky is still going through and answering the QAs. But essentially, like, we are wrapping up today. Which is so we're just going to answer the questions, sort of take them sort of round robin. Is that sort of like we did yesterday?
For somewhat. It was more like, hey, this one quickly caught it and my eyes saw it type of thing. But let's see here. And then, as always, I'm always going to apologize if there's any questions that have been missed in chat. I do apologize if you haven't got an answer. Go ahead and pop that into the Q&A so it's more obvious to us. Sometimes we'll have like statements that are in there and then the question, then all of a sudden we lose it. So just always something to be aware of. But let's see. Actually, there was something in the chat here. It's at the bottom here. So can you review creating a template for notes? So Austin, if you still have the database open, Let's go ahead and just show that where it's at. I will say the actual content of the note template will definitely vary depending on what you really find valuable or what you find yourself kind of always forgetting about, I guess is the best way to phrase that. But to add in a new note template, or any template really for that matter, come up to your name in the top right, come on down to manage your account. And then once we're basically halfway down the page, you'll see manage templates, and then note templates is at the bottom of that list, or actually almost at the very bottom.
So if we wanted to create we have one here, but let's go ahead and just recreate the client review process since we're on the topic. I'm going to go ahead and add a new one here, and we'll go ahead and give it a title. I'll say client review follow-up. And then what I like to do is I actually like to take the body of the note and to put in those actual items that I need to include in every note. So for example, if part of one of my conversation topics in the client review is to indicate any major life changes, because it's something that I asked the client about, then I will go ahead and put in any major life changes that that client has experienced. I could also do something like, for example, performance review notes. So was there anything that came up in the performance review that needs to be adjusted or changed? So we'll do note/adjustments. And so what I'll do here is I'm basically just prompting myself to fill in these items when I go to enter in my client review notes. I'll give it a category. And if I want to, I could even have it to where it prompts a new follow-up activity once I go ahead and add it. And so we'll go ahead and save this note template. And so that way, when it's time for me to go ahead and enter in a new note, here we go. I can go ahead and click the plus button here, choose notes, and those items are going to pre-fill for me. So that way I know that these are the 2 items that I need to include in my client review follow-up notes.
Yeah, and I love that with the templates because it's just, I always say they're starting off points. It's just things I need to put there the same every time. It doesn't mean you have to, you can remove it, but it's going to make for consistency. My notes are always consistently set up the same way. My categories are the same way. I love the fact that we have these note templates. Now, since we were just talking about client reviews as well, there was a question where saying, can you see past client review dates? Now, the answer is yes/no. Yes, you can see past client review dates if you're adding your client reviews as activities. So you want to know, that's what's important is when was the client review? It should have been added as an activity, and that is all reportable. But the reminder itself is not, there's no history in the reminder. It's always looking forward. As soon as the date passes, it rolls over to the next one in frequency. That's why you do, it's part of like the birthday. I mean, I am horrible about birthdays. A birthday passes and I'm always a week later reaching out and being like, oh, hey, totally forgot your birthday. You know, honestly, at this point at Facebook, if I don't log into Facebook that day, I don't see anybody's birthday. You know, I don't know, but it's same thing. You want to make sure you're looking ahead. So the client review reminders, you can't look back and see when was the reminder. It's always about when was the activity, when did I schedule it? Another question that was directed towards me, it looks like it came from an anonymous. It was about, I sent a link to the help desk on email, and it's asking you to log in. That's just asking you to log into our Redtail help desk page. You might have to create a username password for the help desk page so you can log in to view our help desk. Now, you can mainly view most of our help desk information. Now, Rick, I think I might have asked you this, but things about email, you actually have to log into to the help desk to view those because there is more information. So because it was a link on broadcast email, just go in and choose sign in. If you don't have this is a Redtail help desk account, just sign up for it. This is not the same thing as your Redtail CRM login. It is a separate program. This is just the ticketing system we use where all of our help desk information is stored. So again, if you're not able to see a link that we would have sent you today, it's mainly because you're not logged into the help desk program.
Yeah, so the big reason behind that, just to give everybody a little bit of a peek behind the curtain, is actually because I think it was those help desk pages were getting hit by bots. Like they were getting commented, like there was something about the way, like Curtis, like you said, the content of the email and stuff like that The way that that is written out, the way that those instructions are referring to those broadcast emails, it was a weird internet thing. And so, as Curtis said, if you set up an account, it's literally just a Zendesk help account. It's not your Redtail login. Then you'll be able to access that material. So it keeps it safe, I suppose, is one way of doing it.
I love that phrase for like maybe a training topic. Weird internet thing.
Weird internet things that just happen sometimes. That just, I don't know. Tracy asked a couple of questions about Copy Talk. And I'm going to send you a link, Tracy, on the Copy Talk integration. But the short answer is that yes, like Copy Talk does allow for multiple people logged on and whatnot. It's really always a situational setup, so I'll make sure I get something like that to you. What else do we got? I've got a couple of other questions. Who wants the next one? Everybody's just reading them.
I know we're
Great webinar content, guys. Excellent job. All 5 of us just reading.
Right.
I have a feeling we're probably all reading the one from Greg here where it's like a short paragraph.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, wait, hold up. What's the question here?
Okay. Somebody take dibs on Greg's question.
Turns 50.
I want to see who's going to beat it. Ginger asked a question about favorites for something for someone who's been with Redtail for years, trying to organize and clean up most important things. I said this yesterday, Ginger. So if you were on yesterday, like you're going to hear the same thing. But if you're focusing on cleanup and if you're focusing on most important things, like use those user-defined fields if you haven't already. Start collecting contact information and client information about things that might seem really insignificant, but actually help build those relationships further. There's a book by I think his name is John Akoff, and he has a saying, which is like, you need to care about what your clients care about, and they will care, and they care about weird things. They care about what soda they drink. They care about what sports team they cheer for. They care about what kind of car they drive. You know, you got people out there who would never, ever, ever sit in a Ford. They're loyal to Chevy. You know, there are people out there like that. Those are the types of things that you should be focusing on when it comes to cleanup and enhancing the data in your database, because that's going to help build your more specific relationships.
I'm going to take a stab at Greg's question with the 50. So, Austin, since you have control, if you don't mind walking through this with me, in the CRM, this is actually going to be really similar to like the birthday report, but go to the contacts on the left-hand side.
Okay.
And then up at the top, we'll make sure we're on advanced search, and then let's do active clients. So contact status equal to active. I always like to start with active clients. It's who I want to focus on. And then you want to see anybody who's going to be turning 50 this year. So in this case, do contact, then DOB year. DOB year equal to, and then it's going to be 1971. Right? Yeah, that's math correctly. So 1971, and now here's essentially everybody who's an active client who's going to be 50 this year. We got them right there. Honestly, if you have a really long list, you could use that birthday report again. So if you select them, contact options, birthday report, under reports, it's going to show you in order, and they're all going to be turning 50. So you could save that, just update that year every year, saying, okay, next year we're going to run it for 1972, and we have all of our active clients who are turning 50 within that year. This is where you mentioned, hey, should it be quarterly? Should it be this? You can set up a repeating activity again to make sure to remind you to run this search. Again, the repeating activity should be just reminding you to do some sort of action in the system. There we go. Now, the one thing about this is 2 of them had their date of birth reminder turned off, which is why only 2 of them show up here. But again, that's one good way to actually access that so you can see it. This might actually be a great way to use Austin's idea of the tag group. Like, hey, I'm going to add them to my 50-year-olds, 50-year-old tag group, turning 50 in 2021. So that's another option where you can mark them off and you have them together. So these are the people we're focusing on. All right.
A couple of questions that came in about dictation. I know we mentioned you can open up the mobile app on your phone and use the phone's native dictation to talk into the note. That function is available on computers as well. You just have to figure out how to set it up on your computer. I Googled it for mine. So we're on Macs here. And for me, I can like press the function key twice and then it will dictate into the box that I'm wanting to type in. So the couple questions came in about will we ever get a native dictation tool built into Redtail? It's not likely that Redtail, us as a company, will build a dictation tool because Windows and Apple have already built that and they have much more resources to put into something like that. So here Austin's brought it up. I don't know if you can actually demo it for us, Austin.
Yeah, you said it was the function key?
Oh, on mine, I think I had to turn it on, but go ahead and try it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like usually you have to enable it because I turned that bad boy off because I was setting it off all the time on accident.
Yeah, I think I need to enable it as well. I think Windows has one too that you can use as well. But yeah, I think I need to do some settings in my enabling that. But yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay. I had another
right.
question for.
Go ahead, Haley. Sorry. I'm stealing something from Skip, so keep going.
Where did it go? Oh, wait. Who was I going to answer?
And actually, while she's doing that, Leah asked a question about. It looks like you had questions specifically about purchasing an email domain, and how in our documentation we didn't suggest using Microsoft. If you have questions specifically about email, I'm gonna really suggest that you call into our support team. There's actually an option you can choose to talk to an email specialist. So when you go to support and then you can choose you want to talk about email, they will definitely be able to give you the best information about why we suggest certain things, because email in itself is just a specific tech department. And it's a little outside of the Redtail CRM training scope. So I want to make sure and get you the best answer. So if you call our 800 number, 1-800-206-5030, and choose the option for email support, that's going to be the best option to get those answers.
Found it. It was hiding at the bottom.
There we go.
So Enrique, I misanswered your question when I typed it. So you're asking about how to search for the subject of an activity after the fact. That I answered the notes by contact report and misanswered that. That's actually through reports on the left-hand side under activity reports and the activities by contact. Of course, the notes wouldn't have the subject because that's reporting on notes. So here in the filters, you'll be able to find the subject box where you can put in one word or more that matches the subject that you're looking for.
One thing to also on this report though, is if it's something that might've been completed and we're trying to track it down, if you're back on that filter, you can do open and completed. So if it is something that's passed, just make sure you change that box as well.
Now, another question came in. I believe it's Rain. I believe, or Renee? Rain. I apologize if I mispronounced. The question is there a way to turn on all active clients' date of birth reminder one at a time instead of individually? Well, yes, there is. The good news is anytime you create a contact record and add a date of birth, the date of birth reminder is automatically enabled. Normally, the only time it ever gets turned off is if somebody chose to turn it off specifically for that contact. But if you do want to make sure that everybody is turned on, you can run a search. So contact status equal to active client. Here's every single one of our active clients. We're going to select all. Because it's over 50, we're going to make sure and choose that underlined option. Then contact options on the right-hand side, bulk actions. And then when you scroll down this long list that's going to come up, it's going to actually say, I believe it'll say enable reminder or disable reminder. But it's actually going to give you an option in that list of bulk actions. I think Austin is in a little like dead space, unfortunately, with our Wi-Fi in the Redtail office. So we get a little of those lags. But again, under the bulk actions, there is a spot where you can actually manage the reminders and turn them on or off in bulk from the search page right here.
Let's try it one more time here.
But again, like I always like to say, if anytime you have a question that's saying, can I do a change or something to contacts in bulk? The best place to go and check first is run a search, do the bulk changes, and you'll see right out, there we go. It says change birthday reminder. And you can either turn them all off or on. All right.
So we do have a question here from Haley, different spelling, Haley.
Okay.
Is there a good trick to keep track of RMDs for clients? Meaning running a report quickly, knowing once you research if they're satisfied with their RMDs or not. Usually when it comes to RMDs, we usually recommend user-defined fields. Now, since user-defined fields can be set up a little bit differently, you could always have it where it's based on a yes or no value if they've made it. If there's an actual like numerical amount you want to do, you could do a numerical. You can have it as an any text, so that way you have a yes, the value, and the date if you'd really like. But usually user-defined fields is going to be your best bet because you can run a report off of them. And I think we even did a webinar on RMDs as well. I'm trying to rack my brain. I'm like, oh my God, did we?
Yeah, we have we didn't do it last year, the webinar, mainly because of the changes, but we do have a how to handle page on RMDs that talk about making an RMD, did they take it, yes or no, for each year, so you can actually track that information and report on it, which is great.
Step by step, we'll take you through everything on how to manage RMDs, or how a Redtail trainer recommends you handle RMDs inside Redtail CRM.
And then as that follow-up, would you make a user-defined field for each year? We do actually. So if you were to even look at our database, there's, I want to say back to like 2016, I think is the oldest one. And then that way, just so that way you can always bulk apply user-defined field and then reset it basically for the next year.
And then a comment came in saying, I thought you did RMDs with tag groups for each year. You can do tag groups, or you can do user defined fields. Again, it's about what works best for your office.
Yep.
These are just suggestions we make. You can always, honestly, I feel like tag groups are always a second option for every single process. Can we, let's just put in a tag group. Let's just put in a tag group. It's essentially that, free for all of how we want to manage something else. So it's up to you to do that if you wish. Now another question in here says, how do you do a custom export for specific fields? Before we show you how to create something like that first, let's go back. Austin, can you just run a search for all the active clients again?
Sure.
So we have the ability to create a custom export template. So that's in the same place where you go and create the templates, but it's all about first choosing who you want to send to that template. So if I want to say, I want to send all of my active clients to a very specific export that includes specific fields, you can select them all from here, choose contact options. Now, the first option says exports. Those are available, like those are pre-built ones that Redtail has. It'll say, okay, I can export the activities, I can do the accounts, however you want. But if you want to get very specific, just below exports, it says custom exports. And this is going to show you a list of all of your custom export templates. Now, if you choose custom exports and there's nothing in this dropdown, it means you have not created a custom export template yet. So don't worry. Again, this is just how after it's created as a template, you can then choose to send the contacts to it. So if you want to then create a template so you can actually do this process, it's in your name in the top right-hand corner, choose manage your account. Then under the manage template section, you'll see custom export templates. And this allows you to actually create a template. You can actually hit new in the top right-hand corner. You can be very specific, choose the check boxes of the fields that you want to export. Absolutely love this as a way of organizing and exporting data. You can say, I want to get this information from my selected contacts. And if you want more information on that, you can definitely just go to our help desk, search custom export, and it'll walk you through all of this information.
All right, there's one question in the Q&A that I feel like would be a good one to end on. I don't know if you had more to add there, Curtis.
No, I think this is the perfect question for Haley to answer as well.
Answer Haley first, and then I'll answer the other one.
Is it possible to export reports by head of household only? Yes, you can definitely export reports by head of household only. That's just adding another layer into the search criteria. You can say only show me contacts that are marked as head of household, and that's under family. The field will be head of household equal to, and then say true. So really, again, before you send to a report, it's all about finding which contacts you want first. And as long as you add that layer in, that's who you're going to get.
All right, awesome. All right, so we do have to cut it off at some point. This is going to be the final question. If you have additional questions, we have our support resources to reach out to afterwards as well, or we can set up a one-on-one training. So this last question came in. It said, what's coming down the roadmap for Redtail? So what's coming next? So while I can't give the public roadmap or anything like that, I do want to direct you to the question mark in the CRM, the top right-hand corner. And if you go to that question mark, there's two features I want to point out here. First, there is the suggest a feature forum. That is a direct line to our development team. That's actually a direct line to what's going to be my new role. So that's me. Go ahead and put in any suggestions here. If you do feel like searching to see if there is an existing similar or same suggestion, you can absolutely do that. And then just add your votes to that suggestion. But if you just want to add your suggestion and then leave it for me to merge later, if there are duplicates, then I can do that as well. And then here we're going to be responding to these suggestions and saying, well, that is planned. It's not currently planned, but not currently planned just means it's literally not currently planned. Technology changes all the time, and you can keep adding suggestions if you do definitely feel that they're important. But this is how we gauge user interest on those different features. And we really just want to make sure that we are dedicating development resources to the most users that they're going to be able to help. So that's where this forum is now. The proof is in the pudding, right? So that brings me back to the second feature under that question mark, which is the release notes. And this is where you can see what current updates have been released. These are the new features, the fixes. As much as we don't like to admit it, we are a software, we are made of code. So there are occasionally issues in here where we do need to fix those issues. So you'll see anything labeled as added, that's something new. Anything that's updated, we just kind of adjusted something. And then anything with fixed means it maybe wasn't working as intended, but we have released a fix and now it is.
That's perfect.
Awesome.
Excellent stuff. Sage gives us a standing virtual ovation. So thank you, Sage. Thank you for everybody. I mean, we hit almost 800 people on this second day, which is incredible. We still had 400 some odd people stick around for the extra 11 minutes of Q&A. We really appreciate everybody who took the time to sit in with us today. We trained, I mean, both numbers included for the first 2 days, we trained almost 1,800 people. Now, there's certainly some duplicates. There's certainly some people were here both days, but it was really fun to really connect with you guys. We really appreciate your time. And if you have any other questions, reach out to our support team, reach out to us. We are absolutely happy to take care of you. But yeah, everyone, enjoy the rest of your week. Be safe out there. And we'll likely see you on down the road on another webinar or another call. But other than that, well done to my trainers. Have a great rest of the day, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.